Chapter 868. Revenge. Jun. I can't let this Lin go even if you don't say it. He made me lose 40 million. Do you think my money is so easily lost? This debt, I will definitely put on Lin Yi's head. Dajo laughed coldly and said fiercely. He was also exasperated. Who was he, Jin Dajo? When had he ever suffered such humiliation? Right, Dad. I heard that Meng Yao's family's pretty rich and Lin Yi's a bodyguard. Why don't we make a move on Meng Yao and get her to pay us the money? Zhang Jun immediately turned his attention to Meng Yao. He more or less knew about Lin Yi from Zhao Qibing. Of course, Zhang Jun didn't know that Zhao Qibing purposely leaked this information to him so that he could be cannon fodder. I know, I've already asked someone to investigate. Pengzhan Industries is very famous in the province. Dajo, on the other hand, had his sights set on Pengzhan. He'd thought it through very well. If his son was in this state because of his daughter, then who else would pay for the medical fees? Not only did he have to pay for the medical fees, but he also had to give some compensation. Yes. Zhang Jun heard that his father also wanted to cause trouble for Meng Yao, and he felt relieved. But we must kill that Lin Yi. It won't be easy to kill Lin Yi. I heard that he's a master at the early phase of the mystic class, and that Li Fu beside Pengzhan is also a master at the peak of the late phase of the golden class. It won't be easy for us to touch them. Zhen Dajo got some of the information from his investigation, but most of it came from Zhao Qibing. What's the use of those masters? Don't we have guns? No matter how strong he is, can he be invulnerable? Zhen Jun said in disdain, Dad, where are your men who are doing business on the high seas? Tell them to come back and kill Lin Yi. Although the Zhen family had some business in the East Sea, the most profitable business was the one that had no capital. The Zhen family had a pirate group codenamed Firearm Team that specialized in robbing cargo ships on the high seas. Every year, it provided the Zhen family with a large amount of wealth. Of course, this business didn't belong to the Zhen family. With the Zhen family's strength, they couldn't afford such a large business. This business was managed by Zhang Dajo on behalf of a distant relative. That distant relative took the majority, while Zhang Dajo only took 20%. Childish. You're going to call in a firearm team from the city and give Lin Yi a round of bullets? Wouldn't that be waiting for the police to destroy our Zhen family? Zhang Dajo glared at Zhang Jun and said angrily, although these cultivators are afraid of guns, a sneak attack with 1 or 2 guns won't be able to hit them because they are too fast. The only way to kill them is if a group of people fire at the same time and shoot randomly. But unless there's no one around, if there's such a large-scale gunfight in the city, I'll be arrested as the leader of a terrorist organization tomorrow. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't think it through. Zhang Jun thought that having a firearm team was a great thing, and he wasn't afraid of anything in this world. However, after hearing his father's words, he realized that he was taking it for granted. But your suggestion is good. I have a plan to deal with them. Zhang Dajo's eyes flashed with a hint of viciousness. Let's go, we'll go find Yao Wang first. Dad, how are you going to deal with them? Zhang Jun was impatient. I'm going to ask for help from your 4th uncle and ask him to send his master to help. Zhang Dajo said. This 4th uncle was Zhang Dajo's business partner. 80% of the business on the sea belonged to him, and Zhang Dajo was working for him. Oh, Ma Zhu who works for 4th uncle? Zhang Jun quickly asked. I heard that he's also a Mystic Division master? Yes, when we were fighting for business on the sea, your 4th uncle sent him to help me. You didn't see how good he was. Zhang Dajo seemed to be recalling the events of the past. One kick, and one of them was kicked to death. Even his head was sent flying. Can he deal with Lin Yi? Zhang Jun didn't care much about cultivators and warriors. He always felt that they weren't as good as guns, but according to his father, they couldn't use guns on a large scale in the city. Of course he can, Zhang Dajo said. He's a physical master in the middle phase of the Mystic Division. I heard from Zhao Qibing that Lin Yi is only in the early phase of the Mystic Division. Of course he can deal with him. Zhang Dajo didn't know the difference between physical and spiritual, but he felt that the middle phase of the Mystic Division was definitely stronger than the early phase of the Mystic Division. Then let him kill Lin Yi directly? But that won't be enough. Zhang Yingjun felt that killing Lin Yi directly was too easy on him. Of course we can't kill him directly. Dazhou shook his head. What we need to do is to let Ma Zhu kidnap Meng Yao and Yu Shu. His opponent is only that Li Fu. As long as he defeats Li Fu, we'll be able to capture Meng Yao and Yu Shu. With the hostages, we can threaten Peng Zhan to ransom them. Of course, we can ask Lin Yi to deliver the ransom to a deserted place and let the firearms team shoot him to death. Great! Not only can we get a large sum of money, but we can also take revenge. Zhang Yingjun's eyes lit up after hearing his father's words. All right, it's settled then, but I have to be cured first. Meng Yao and Yu Shu, I will definitely kill these two girls. Ha ha ha. Ha ha. Zhen Dazhou laughed along with his son. A revenge plan was formed just like that. In the floating cloud bar, Zhao Qibing said unhappily, "What is Zhen Dazhou doing with Zhen Yingjun? He doesn't want to be cured. Why aren't they back yet?" No, I think Zhen Dazhou wants to take Zhen Yingjun to the hospital to confirm if he's sick or not. Yao Wang saw through Zhen Dazhou's intention. Oh, would the hospital be able to tell? Qibing paused and asked, "Master Bing, don't you trust me, Yao Wang?" "Don't worry, they'll be back soon." Yao Wang said, "Master Bing, you'll definitely earn this money." "Ah, then I'm relieved." Zhao Qibing nodded. "That's fast, but there aren't many fat sheep like them. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to make money from real estate." Chapter 869. A good plan. Of course, we have Lin Yi to take the blame for us. What's there to be afraid of? Zhao Qibing waved his hand, but this time we have to get a hidden illness that's hard to notice. It's best to let him notice it after a while. You're right. I understand. Master Bing, don't worry, Yao Wang nodded. I'll get him a disease that affects his eyesight and make his eyes blurry until he can't see anything. Of course, this will take around a year. Okay, let's do that. 1 year later, when House Zhen has earned enough money, they'll send it to us. Wahaha! Zhao Qibing laughed excitedly. Just as Yao Wang predicted, Zhen Dazhou brought Zhang Yingjun back. They couldn't find anything wrong with their son in the hospital, so they could only come back to Zhao Qibing to be cheated. Master Bing, I've finally collected the money. When can we start the treatment? Zhen Dazhou said with a smile. He was now sure that only the king pharmacist could cure his son's illness. Actually, we could have started just now. You're our old customer. You don't have to pay first. Zhao Qibing said sarcastically. Huh, I was just thinking about it. Let's get the money together first. Zhen Dazhou didn't know if Zhao Qibing guessed the reason why he left and felt a little awkward. Shall we start now? Yao Wang nodded. Okay, let's start then. Follow Li Sihua to complete the transfer. I'll start treating your son now. Zhen Dazhou followed Sihua to complete the transfer while Yao Wang pretended to treat Zhen Yingjun. He held the silver needles in his left hand and pressed on Zhen Yingjun's pulse with his right hand. He transferred traces of pure energy into Zhen Yingjun's body, making Zhen Yingjun feel as if his entire body was heating up. The silver needles instantly covered Zhen Yingjun's body, turning him into a porcupine. However, Zhen Yingjun believed in Yao Wang's medical skills and wasn't afraid. In fact, Yao Wang only inserted one needle in the right spot. The other needles were just for show and didn't pierce into the acupoints at all. The last one was to destroy his vision. But Zhen Yingjun didn't know about it and thought that it was some kind of magic. The medicine king used his true qi to heat up his body, so he was sweating profusely. In the eyes of others, it looked like he had overexerted himself and was exhausted. Looking at the medicine king who was sweating profusely, Zhen Dazhou sighed. It seemed that this 30 million was not easy to earn. How much Zhen qi would be consumed? It's so hot, I'm dying. Zhen Yingjun was scalded by Yao Wang, and his body turned red as if he was cooked. Yingjun, you have to persevere. Zhen Dazhou quickly encouraged his son. The process of treatment is naturally painful. I know, I will endure it. The teenage mutant ninja turtle is extremely brave. Zhen Yingjun started to mutter some words of encouragement. Zhen Yingjun was tormented for more than an hour, and Yao Wang didn't have it easy either. He was suffocating from the heat, but for the sake of the 30 million, he had to put on an act. He had to make Zhen Dazhou feel that the 30 million was worth it. Only then could he go out and advertise for him and show how amazing Yao Wang was. There's a reaction. There's a reaction. After a while, Zhang Yingjun suddenly realized that his lower body had a reaction. He shouted happily, "Dad, I'm having a reaction." "Oh, that's great." Zhen Dazhou walked over and was excited. Yao Wang is really a miracle worker. Even the doctors in the hospital said that there's no disease that can't be cured. Yao Wang's hands can cure the disease. "That's right. Don't you know who Yao Wang is?" Zhao Qibing said proudly, but in his heart, he was cursing Zhen Dazhou for being an idiot. This was Yao Wang's doing. If he couldn't cure it, who could? Phew! The medicine king finally began to stop. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "All right, it has been cured, but this old man's physical strength is not up to it. I need to adjust my breathing." "Yao Wang, you've worked hard." Zhen Dazhou saw how tired Yao Wang was and felt that the 30 million was worth it. Although he had treated Zhang Yingjun's illness many times before, it was never this tiring. It seemed like his son's illness was really hard to cure. Yao Wang waved his hand and didn't say anything. He just sat there with his eyes closed, and Zhang Yingjun jumped up in excitement. "Dad, it's really working, it's really cured." That's good, that's good." Zhen Dazhou sighed in relief. "Thank you, Master Bing and Yao Wang." "You're welcome. I have to congratulate your son for regaining his manhood." Zhao Qibing laughed. "But you spent the 30 million in vain." "Why do you say that?" Zhen Dazhou froze as he didn't expect Zhao Qibing to say that. If it wasn't for Meng Yao and Yu Shu, if it wasn't for Lin Yi helping them, would Jining Jun have so many problems? Would you have suffered such a huge loss? Zhao Qibing started to convince Zhen Dazhou to go against Lin. "Yeah, this time I won't let him go so easily. But I still need your help, Master Bing. Help me investigate Pengzhan Industries." Zhen Dazhou felt that he was unfamiliar with this place, and he needed to rely on the locals to do anything in Songshan. Zhou Tiandi had obviously distanced himself from him these days, and Zhen Dazhou had heard about the grudge between Zhou Tiandi and Lin Yi. He laughed at Zhou Tiandi's cowardice and decided not to bother him anymore. That's not a problem." Zhao Qibing nodded generously. "After all, we're old friends. I can help you with this, but how are you going to deal with Lin Yi? If it's convenient, can I give you some advice? Lin Yi and I are old enemies." Zhen Dazhou had heard about the grudge between Zhao Qibing and Lin Yi, so he dared to tell Zhao Qibing about his plan to deal with Lin Yi. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." He believed that Zhao Qibing wouldn't betray him. "It's like this. I'm preparing to..." Zhen Dazhou told Zhao Qibing his plan to deal with Lin. "Yo, that's a good plan. Why didn't I think of it before?" Zhao Qibing slapped the table and praised Zhen Dazhou's plan. "First, kidnap Meng Yao and Yu Shu with a mystic-class mid-phase master. Then lure Lin Yi to a place with no one around and shoot randomly. Even if he doesn't die, he'll be heavily injured. Then, let the mystic-class master kill Lin Yi. Brilliant." Chapter 870. The exact same prescription. "What's wrong, Master Bing? You think this plan is feasible too?" Dazhou was overjoyed. He didn't expect his plan to be approved by Master Bing. "It's doable, very doable." Qibing nodded and looked at Sihua. "Sihua, what do you think?" "It's doable." Sihua nodded in agreement. "Whatever information you need, I'll provide it to you." "Thank you so much, Sihua bro." Dazhou quickly thanked him. "I'll go contact that master first. Wait." Yao Wang spoke again. "Yao Wang, is there anything else?" Dazhou paused, but since it was Yao Wang who spoke, he didn't dare to be slow. He quickly stopped and turned back. "Your illness today reminded me that although your son seems to be fine now, it's hard to say if Lin Yi has done anything else. You have to be careful. If anything goes wrong when you go back, don't be careless." Yao Wang started to give Dazhou a heads up. "What? There's more?" Dazhou was furious. "Isn't this Lin Yi too wicked? There's more. It's just a guess, I can't be sure. After all, I only thought of it after what happened today." Yao Wang sighed. Then, "Yao Wang, can you check Yingjun again?" Dazhou asked carefully. "I can't find anything right now. How can I check when there's no illness? I can't check every part of your son's body, can I? If I do that, my pure energy will run out and I'll die." Yao Wang waved his hand and rejected Dajo's suggestion. I see. Dajo couldn't force it after hearing Yao Wang's words, but his heart felt like it was blocked. He was very unhappy, and his hatred for Lin increased by another level. But don't worry, there's no illness that Yao Wang, can't cure. If there's any problem, come find me. Yao Wang comforted. That's the only way. Jindajo had no choice but to leave with his son. After Jindajo and his son left, Zhao Qibing sighed, "What two idiots. I really hope they get lucky and kill Linny again. Let them do whatever they want. We just need to focus on earning our own money." Sihua said, "Master Bing, now that we have 40 million in our account, shouldn't we start building the orphanage?" "Oh, okay. Get ready. Take the king pharmacist to the orphanage and warn them. Tell them to move away, or I'll kill them," Qibing said arrogantly. Now that he had a guaranteed way to earn money, he was much more domineering. "Master Bing, but I'm not good at fighting, right?" Yao Wang's listless expression changed to one of high spirits. "Don't worry, you just need to show the strength of a mystic class master. I don't think that the dean, a golden class master, would dare to fight a mystic class master like you directly," Qibing said nonchalantly. "You're not going to fight her. You're going to scare her. Don't worry. As long as she's not an idiot, she won't fight you." "Okay." Yao Wang relaxed. "Master Bing, I'll go take a shower first. I almost died from the heat. I'm sweating all over. 30 million isn't easy to earn." "Huh." Zhao Qibing heard Yao Wang's words and smiled happily. "Yao Wang, don't worry. No matter what, you're the main contributor. I'll remember it." "Thank you, Master Bing." Yao Wang quickly cupped his hands in thanks. There was a Zhao Yao Wang in Songshan, and his miraculous hands were comparable to Hua Tuo's. The news spread from the Zhun father and son, and with Sihua's purposely spreading rumors, Zhao Yao Wang's name quickly spread through the upper class of Songshan, and even many outsiders knew about him. However, because of Zhao Yao Wang's high fees, other than Jining Jun, who couldn't be cured by others, no one else was willing to spend so much money. So even though Zhao Yao Wang was famous, there weren't any patients. Kong Ming got the Yawang formula for Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine from Kong Xiaobo, and he was overjoyed. He didn't think that he'd get the formula so easily. If he'd known, he wouldn't have gone after Guan Xin. However, Kong Xiaobo's power was limited. It was easy to get the formula for the injury medicine, but it wouldn't be so easy to get the formula for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Kong Xiaobo's access was limited. After all, it seemed like he had to start from Guan Xuemin's side. Of course, this was a matter for the future. At least he had something to report now. Kong Ming happily returned to House Kong with the formula for Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine. Dr. Kong was quite satisfied with Kong Ming's achievements. After all, the formula for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing couldn't be rushed, and Kong Ming getting the formula for Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine back was a great achievement. As expected, this formula is exactly the same as our House Kang's formula. Dr. Kong held the formula from Kong Ming and was furious. It must be that bastard Kong Xiaobo who offered this formula to Guan Xuemin in exchange for the position of vice president. Greedy bastard, ruining House Kang's plans. Of course, Dr. Kong didn't doubt the authenticity of the formula. After all, the formula was in Dr. Kang's hands. Even Kong Guifeng and Kong Tsuepu didn't know about it, let alone Kong Ming. The only one who knew the formula was Kong Xiaolong, and Xiaolong wouldn't leak it out. He'd already decided that Xiaolong would be the future head of House Kong. Why would he betray his own interests? So this recipe had to be Xiaobo's handiwork. Yeah, he sold it to me for 300,000, so naturally he'd give it to Guan Xuemin for the position of vice president. Kong Ming nodded in agreement. If that's the case, then don't blame me for being rude. Dr. Kong smiled coldly. Yes, Grandpa, we can't let them have it easy, Kong Ming said. Chapter 871. Showering with them? So that's how it is. I was thinking that after their products hit the market, we could just buy a few boxes and slowly test them. Why would we need to spend so much money on a prescription? So it turns out that we want to give them a blow when their products hit the market. Kong Ming nodded in realization. Xiaolong didn't explain it too clearly to him on the phone, and Kongming didn't really know what the recipe was for. And, Xiaolong, you go prepare for this, and make sure that Miracle Dr. Guan's company's reputation is ruined. Dr. Kong said to Xiaolong, come up with a plan and show it to me. Yes, Grandpa. Xiaolong nodded and agreed. Scheming was his forte, and he had to make sure that Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company's reputation hit rock bottom. Not only would it affect his impression in front of Miracle Dr. Kong, but it was also because House Kong would be Xiaolong's House Kong in the future. He had to kill Guan Xiumin in the cradle. He couldn't let them take away his market share and position. Right, Grandpa. Guan Xian's already engaged. What should we do about this? Our previous plan won't work. She's engaged. How could she still be friends with me? Kong Mingming blamed his failure on Guan Xian's engagement, but House Kong didn't know the specifics, and they didn't doubt Kong Mingming's ability to pick up girls. That's our mistake. We didn't think that Guan Xian was already engaged, and now the recipe for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing is going to be difficult. Dr. Kong frowned after hearing Kong Mingming's words. He knew that a girl like Guan Xian wouldn't be too intimate with another man after she was engaged, so their plan to steal the recipe was obviously not going to work. But Dr. Kong didn't want to give it up just like that. After all, this prescription could be the stepping stone for the Kong family to successfully become an aristocratic family. It could allow the Kong family's strength to rise to a higher level and reach a higher position. Yes, I didn't do my research properly and acted rashly. Thank goodness I didn't alert them, or it'd be even more troublesome. Kong Mingming wasn't stupid. He was afraid that his grandpa would blame him, so he admitted his mistake quickly. I've disappointed everyone. Grandpa, you can't blame Xiaoming for this. Xiaolong had to show his generosity as the leader of the third generation. Although it was true that Xiaoming didn't investigate the matter thoroughly, who would have thought that Guan Xian had an engagement? Xiaolong said, this isn't something that can be stopped with mere human strength. Xiaolong's right. Xiaolong is right. You don't need to belittle yourself, Xiaoming. You've already done very well. As for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, we'll think of something else. Dr. Kong said, don't worry, Grandpa. I'll head back to Songshan if there's nothing else. I'll keep trying to find out more, but I'll have to rely on my family's support for the expenses. Kong Mingming was living a carefree life in Songshan, and he didn't have any supervision from his family. That's not a problem. I'll give you another $1 million for the expenses. Let me know if it's not enough. As long as we can get the recipe for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, it'll be worth it no matter how much money we spend. Miracle Dr. Kong said, right, you'll have to work harder on the sourcing channel. If we get a hold of Xiumin's raw material sourcing channel, we'll seal it off completely. I like to see what they'll be able to sell in the future. What's the use of a recipe? Okay, I got it. Kong Xiaoming nodded and replied. Lenny sat on the sofa, watching Pleasant Goat and Big Wolf with the Miss and Yushu. He didn't understand why the Miss and Yushu would like to watch kid stuff at their age. But then again, it was understandable that they were a little childish since they'd been living together all day, not interacting much with the outside world. The night was boring, especially with Yushu and Mengyao watching TV. Lin, he didn't have anything to do, so he picked up the phone on the table and started playing games. He'd volunteered to watch TV with them just now, and it'd be a little embarrassing if he were to leave halfway through. Wouldn't that be a little too much of a disgrace? The Miss seemed to be someone who cared a lot about face. I'm going to shower. Lin, who wasn't interested in it at all, and when the show was finally over, he tossed his phone on the coffee table and stood up, preparing to take a shower in his room. I'm going to shower too. Mingyao, stretch your body. What about you? Oh, I haven't finished my apple yet. I'll watch TV for a while. Yao Yao sis, you go shower first. Yushu used the remote control to change the channel, her mouth stuffed with half an apple as she mumbled. Mingyao turned around and went upstairs. General Weiwu saw that the people in the living room had left, so it wagged its tail and went back to its place under the stairs. Not long after Lin Yi and Mingyao left, Lin Yi's phone rang, scaring Yushu. She picked it up and saw the name Tang Yun. She hesitated before picking it up. Hello. Hello? Tang Yun froze. Why was it a girl's voice? She subconsciously thought that she'd called the wrong number, but when she saw that it was indeed Lin Yi's name, she couldn't help but feel strange. You are? Isn't this Lin Yi's number? Yes, I'm Shu, the automated voice answering machine. What can I do for you? You can leave me a message, or I'll pass it on to Shield Bro. Yushu said. Hashtag Tang Yun heard Yushu's voice and was speechless. Shu? Where's Lin Yi? Oh, Shield Bro and Yao Yao Sis are showering right now. Why are you looking for him? Yushu smiled mischievously. Shower? Lin Yi and Ming Yao? Tang Yun heard Yushu's words and was taken aback. Why did Lin Yi and Ming Yao go to shower? Yeah, Yushu said. Together, Tang Yun didn't believe Yushu's words. This girl always talked nonsense. Who knew if she was telling the truth or not? Tang Yun's vigilance was high now, and normal people couldn't lie to her. Yeah, Yushu replied. Then why don't you go with him? Aren't you Lin Yi's mistress? Tang Yun asked. Chapter 872. Can you see through things? Tang Yun frowned. If Yushu had said that she had just finished showering or was about to shower, then Tang Yun wouldn't have believed her. But Yushu's explanation made Tang Yun a little uneasy. All right, I won't talk to you anymore. I've said too much. If Yao Yao Sis finds out, I'll die a horrible death, bye-bye. Yushu didn't wait for Tang Yun to reply and hung up the phone. Then she started laughing. Tang Yun didn't get to ask what was going on before Yushu hung up. It made her feel a little uncomfortable. Lin Yi really want to shower with Ming Yao? Tang Yun had always felt that the relationship between Lin Yi, Ming Yao, and Yushu wasn't as simple as an employer and employee relationship. Perhaps nothing had happened now, but if this went on, something would happen sooner or later. But Tang Yun didn't want to think about it. She even thought optimistically that if Lin Yi really did have something going on with Ming Yao, it'd be fine as long as she didn't know about it. She didn't know what was going through her mind. Was it because she felt inferior, or was it because she was afraid of losing Lin Yi? Xiao Xiao's words were a lie, but it was a wake-up call for Tang Yun. Love didn't need a reason, and there was no such thing as being rich or poor, but there was always a difference between ideals and reality. Honestly speaking, Tang Yun herself felt that Meng Yao or Guan Xian might be a better match for Lin Yi, and she, on the other hand, had gotten together with Lin Yi by accident. She couldn't help Lin Yi at all. No matter what he did, she'd always be a bystander, and she'd even drag him down with her. Once this feeling formed, it would take root and grow, making Tang Yun worry more and more. She didn't want to ask Lin Yi anything, and she didn't dare to. Yushu's words were 80% fake, but sometimes, knowing that it was fake still made her worried. Tang Yun picked up her phone and hesitated for a long while before dialing a number in the contact book. Do. After the call connected, it rang many times, but no one answered. Tang Yun silently pressed the hang-up button and put the phone aside. She fell onto the bed, hugging the pillow in her arms as she stared at the wall in a daze. After a while, Tang Yun's phone beeped. It was a text notification. Tang Yun was spacing out when she received a text. She looked at her phone and saw that it was a text from Ming Yao. I was taking a shower just now. What's the matter? Tang Yun was shocked. Was Ming Yao really taking a shower? Tang Yun felt as if her heart had been broken into pieces at this moment. It hurt a little, but then she thought about it. If Ming Yao really was showering with Lin Yi, then why would she tell her? How good would it be to hide it from him? But Tang Yun couldn't see Ming Yao's expression, so she didn't know if this message was a show of force. The tone of the message was calm, and she couldn't see any emotions in it. This was the misstyle. Tang Yun wanted to make a call to confirm, but she didn't dare. She was afraid that her guess would become reality if she called. But she couldn't be at ease if she didn't call. After a long time of hesitation, Tang Yun sighed and put the phone aside. She buried her head in the blanket, tears falling down her cheeks. Ming Yao sent a text to Tang Yun, but Tang Yun didn't reply for a long time. She found it strange, so she called Tang Yun back. After all, the three of them had a good relationship. Ming Yao shook her head when she heard the sound of the phone being turned off. Maybe Tang Yun's phone was out of battery, or maybe she called the wrong number. She didn't think too much about it, so she put the phone aside and dried her hair with a towel. It was a quiet night, and Lin Yi realized that he left his phone in the living room the next morning. He looked at his phone and saw no missed calls, so he didn't think too much about it and went to prepare breakfast for the Miss and Yushu. Faubert came to pick up the Miss and Yushu, and Lin Yi drove Yushu's beetle to the hospital to pick up Tang Yin. Tang Yin stood at the entrance of the hospital, feeling nervous. She didn't know if Lin Yi would come to pick her up like usual, and she didn't know if she would ask Lin Yi about what happened yesterday. So she didn't even eat breakfast and spent the whole morning in anxiety. But the moment Tang Yin saw Lin Yi, all the unhappiness disappeared. Seeing the smile on Lin Yi's face, Tang Yin smiled as well. He still loved her, so why didn't she believe him? Why did she have to worry about something that could happen, but was bound to happen? Tang Yin shook her head and quickly ran to Lin Yi with her bag. Why are your eyes red? Didn't you sleep well last night? Lin Yi opened the car door for Tang Yin and looked at her strangely. Lin Yi was a part-time doctor, and he was good at observing people. I hit a mosquito in the middle of the night. Tang Yin lied. She couldn't tell Lin that she cried until midnight. Could she? That would be too embarrassing. Although Lin Yi thought that Tang Yin was lying to him, Lin Yi didn't want to get to the bottom of it if Tang Yin didn't want to tell him. What do you want to eat? Tang Yin heard Lin Yi's question, and she couldn't help but be surprised. What do you want to eat? Breakfast? You don't want to eat? Lin Yi smiled. I already ate. Tang Yin wanted to say that she already ate, but looked at Lin Yi's half-smiling eyes and looked down. How do you know that I didn't eat breakfast? Since Lin Yi said that, naturally, he had his reasons, so Tang Yin didn't deny it. Usually, Lin Yi wouldn't ask her this question, and after picking her up, he would go straight to school. I'm a doctor. I can see through your body, Lin Yi said. You can see through things. Tang Yin looked at Lin Yi's eyes and blushed. That's not true. Lin Yi shook his head. I'm just giving an example. You didn't eat anything, and I can see it from your complexion. This is the look, listen, question, and feel of traditional Chinese medicine. It's the look, listen, ask, and feel. Oh. Tang Yin thought that Lin Yi could see through things, and she was shocked. Although she would show it to him sooner or later, it would feel weird if someone could see through things. Let's go eat something first. Lin Yi started the car and started looking for a breakfast stall on the street. I don't think so. We'll be late for school. Tang Yin was worried. Chapter 873. No one answered. Tang Yin was speechless, but a question came to her mind. Right, Mr. Wang. Why does he look like he's scared of you? This was something Tang Yin couldn't understand. She used to think that Lin Yi was some rich young master, and that Ji Feng didn't dare offend him. But now that Lin Yi's identity was revealed, he was just Ming Yao's bodyguard. Why would Wang Ji Feng be scared of him? He wouldn't even give face to the nephew of the school board, Zhong Pingliang, right? I caught him hitting on a girl in school. Lin Yi didn't hide it. Tang Yin's eyes went wide. Hitting on a girl? Him? In school? I think it was his lover. One of the teachers in school. Lin Yi shrugged. I just happened to see it, and he felt guilty. I see. Tang Yin didn't know what to say. It was because of this that Wang Jifeng dared to hit on her in school. She wondered if she should thank Wang Jifeng for that. If Lin Yi hadn't caught him, Lin Yi wouldn't have dared to do that. Let's go eat first. Lin Yi stopped the car in front of a breakfast shop and pulled Tang Yin out of the car. Yao Yao, the school ran out of red ink. Should we buy another bottle? Yushu asked Meng Yao as if she had thought of something all of a sudden. Oh, let's get one then. Meng Yao nodded before turning to Faubert. Faubert, there's a culture store nearby. Please stop the car. We want to buy a bottle of red ink. Okay, Miss Chu. Faubert nodded. There were a lot of exams in grade 12. There was a big exam every 3 days and a small exam every 2 days. However, most of the exams were graded by the students. This was because the teachers didn't have much free time to grade the papers. So, they messed up the papers and distributed them to the students. The teachers explained the answers to each question. Meng Yao's papers had been graded by Lin Yi before, but the two weren't that close back then. Red ink was a necessity in 12th grade, and since Yushu said they were out of red ink, Meng Yao naturally had to buy another. Faubert parked the car in front of a culture store, and Meng Yao and Yushu went to buy the red ink. Faubert was about to start the car when 2 black Land Rovers blocked Faubert's Bentley, stopping him from moving. Faubert was startled, and his guard went up. The two Land Rovers were obviously doing this on purpose. Otherwise, they wouldn't have stopped like this. Miss Chu, be careful. Contact Mr. Lin. Years of experience told Faubert that there was a hint of danger. As expected, the doors of the two Land Rovers opened in an instant, and a tall man in white came out of the Land Rover in front, while two men in black came out of the Land Rover behind. Each of them had their right hand on their belt, and, after getting out of the car, they stood on the left and right sides of the Bentley. Uncle Fu locked the carriage door and took a deep breath. The two black-clothed men in the back were nothing to be afraid of, but the white-clothed man in the front made Uncle Fu feel an unprecedented pressure. However, the man in white didn't seem to care about the locked car door at all. He reached for the door, and with a bang, the door was pulled down by the man in white. One had to know that the doors of a Bentley were extraordinarily sturdy, especially Peng Zhan's car, which was made to be bulletproof. Who would have thought that the man in white would be able to destroy it so easily? Faubert's expression froze. As expected, the man in white didn't come with good intentions, and he must be a practitioner, at least above the middle phase of the golden class. The door was pulled down by the man in white, and naturally, Faubert couldn't sit in the car anymore. For a master like him, doing so was equivalent to waiting for death. This man was a huge threat to him, and he couldn't protect Meng Yao even if he wanted to. Faubert had no choice but to get out of the car, hoping that he could buy some time for Meng Yao and Yushu to call Lin Yi. However, since the front door was opened by the man in white, the two men in black easily unlocked the door from the front and opened the back door directly. They took out two black guns from their waists, one for each of them, and pointed them at Meng Yao and Yushu. Hand over the phone. The man in black glared at Meng Yao and Yushu coldly. Okay, Yushu handed over the phone obediently. She knew that she shouldn't fight when the odds were against her, and she didn't say anything, knowing that these two were not joking around. Meng Yao was about to call Lin Yi, but it seemed like she couldn't do it anymore. She handed the phone to the man in black helplessly, but she dialed Lin Yi's number and didn't hang up. The man in black took Meng Yao's phone, looked at it, and quickly hung up. He turned off the phone and looked at Meng Yao coldly. Don't think you're so smart. Get out of the car and get into the car at the back. Lin Yi was having breakfast with Tang Yun when he received Meng Yao's call. The miss's phone rang twice, and before Lin Yi could pick it up, the other side hung up. This surprised Lin Yi, and he called back, only to hear that the phone was turned off. Was there no electricity? Lin Yi didn't think much about it. After all, Meng Yao was sent to school by Faubert every day. Lin Yi didn't have to worry about it. What's wrong? Tang Yun asked when she saw that Lin Yi didn't get through. It's nothing, the miss just called, and hung up after a couple of rings. I called back, but her phone was turned off. Lin Yi shrugged. Maybe it's out of battery. Oh, Tang Yun pouted when she heard that it was the miss, and she didn't say anything else. She was a little disappointed. What's wrong? Lin Yi saw that Tang Yun seemed to be depressed, so he asked. It's nothing. Tang Yun shook her head. Did something happen to the miss? Why don't you call Yushu? Lin Yi thought about it, and it made sense. If he couldn't get through to Meng Yao's phone, then he would call Yushu. He dialed Yushu's number, but Yushu's phone was turned off as well. Lin Yi frowned, and he felt that something was wrong. It was possible that Meng Yao's phone ran out of battery, but how could both Meng Yao and Yushu's phones run out of battery? There was no signal on the road from the villa to school, so it couldn't be caused by a lack of signal. Chapter 874. Unscathed Faubert's phone was on the dashboard of the Bentley, and Faubert couldn't pick it up when he heard it ringing. The white-clothed man was giving him a lot of pressure, and he didn't dare move recklessly. Who are you people? Why do you want to capture Miss Chu and Shu? Faubert looked at the white-clothed man and asked. Although he was staring at the white-clothed man, his eyes were focused on the two men in black, Meng Yao and Yushu. Stand here obediently and wait for us to leave. I won't hurt you. The white-clothed man didn't answer Faubert's question. Instead, he spoke arrogantly. Faubert frowned. There was no point in asking since the man didn't want to say anything. The only thing Faubert needed to do now was to stop these people from taking Meng Yao and Yushu away. So he had to deal with the white-clothed man first. The two men in black didn't pose much of a threat to Faubert. They were just two normal people with slightly stronger bodies. It would be a piece of cake to deal with them. And so, Faubert moved. He raised his right hand and sent a palm towards the white-clothed man. It was a feint, however. He wanted to force the white-clothed man back and turn around to save Meng Yao and Yushu. Faubert didn't know the strength of the white-clothed man at the moment, and he didn't want to fight him head-on. As long as he could force the white-clothed man back, it would save him some time. He watched as the two men in black forced Meng Yao and Yushu into the rover behind him, and Li Fu calculated the time. He'd be able to take care of the two men in black as soon as he could after the white man backed off, steal the rover, and drive away. But, as the saying goes, a person's plan can never be overpowered. Faubert thought that he would be able to force the white-clothed man back with one palm, but he didn't think that the white-clothed man wouldn't dodge at all. Instead, a cold, mocking smile flashed across his face. This smile made Faubert's heart tighten. He had already realized that something was wrong. If this white-robed man's strength didn't far surpass his and had already reached the point of ignoring his palm, then he was a fool who didn't know what the consequences of this palm would be. Of course, Faubert did not think that this man in white was a fool. He did not believe that this man in white would not investigate his strength before doing this. Bang! Faubert's palm landed solidly on the white-robed man's body. Faubert practiced external martial arts, so how domineering was this palm? Even the recoil made Faubert's palms numb, but the man in white seemed to be completely fine as he looked at Faubert indifferently. Finished? Does it feel good? The white-clothed man looked at Uncle Fu in ridicule. Bang! So loud. Faubert was not in the mood to joke around with a white-clothed man. His heart was filled with shock. With this palm, even if the opponent was a mystic class master, there was no way he would be unscathed, right? Even if he wasn't heavily injured, he would definitely be sent flying. But this white-clothed man was completely fine, and he was even talking and laughing. This person, just how strong was he? Could it be that he had surpassed the mystic class? But it was impossible, right? Earth-class masters in this common world were almost extinct. You are from House U? This was the only possibility that Faubert could think of. The only people he had offended recently were House U. Faubert did not think that this man in front of him was sent by Zhao Qibing. If House Zhao was willing to send out masters, they wouldn't have waited until now. If they wanted to send, they would have done it long ago, and Lin Yi wouldn't have destroyed their building twice. House U? You have enmity with House U? The white-clothed man smiled faintly. It seems that you have quite a lot of enemies. But unfortunately, I am not one. Then you are. Faubert knew that he was definitely going to die today. Li Fu, right? A physical master with the strength of the peak of the late phase of the golden class. The white-clothed man looked at Faubert and said faintly, "You're still not my opponent, but it is impolite not to reciprocate. I gave you a chance. I told you to wait for us to leave, but you didn't listen. So you can die now." As the white-clothed man spoke, he quickly raised his hand and slapped Faubert's chest. Faubert didn't even have time to dodge, and he was sent flying. Fast, it was too fast. Faubert felt that his chest had been smashed by the white-clothed man, and the intense pain made Faubert realize the strength of this person. The peak of the middle phase of the mystic class. But there was one thing that Faubert couldn't understand. Even if the opponent was a peak of the mid-phase of the mystic class, how could he be unscathed from his attack? Faubert's body landed heavily on the ground, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Faubert knew that he probably couldn't make it. A palm from a peak of the mid-phase of the mystic class wasn't something that a peak of the late phase of the golden class like him could take. If the opponent had the intention to kill him, how could he survive? Ew. How? How are you unscathed? Faubert clutched his chest and looked at the unscathed man in shock. Faubert, Miss cried. She saw with her own eyes how Faubert was sent flying by the white-clothed man, and he fell to the ground and spat out blood. Yushu was also shocked, and she looked at the scene in front of her dumbly. She didn't know what to do. These two girls had never experienced something like this before. Even when they met the robbers in the bank, wasn't this bloody because they had Lin Yi's protection. Shut up. The black-clothed man heard Meng Yao scream, and he took out a towel and waved it in front of Meng Yao and Yushu, and the two fainted immediately. Drive! He ordered the driver after making Meng Yao and Yushu unconscious. Not waiting for Master Ma, the driver asked. Master Jun said that Master Ma will go by himself, and we will go first. The black-clothed man said. Okay. The driver nodded and started the car, and the Land Rover quickly left the scene, disappearing from the intersection in the blink of an eye. Faubert looked at the Land Rover in despair, and he spat out a mouthful of turbid air. He looked at the white-clothed man with blurred eyes. He couldn't hold on any longer. Do you know why I left you alive? The white-clothed man lowered his head and looked at Faubert with a condescending gaze, and said coldly, I will let you die knowing that I'm here to answer your questions. Faubert didn't say anything, and he didn't want to waste his breath. He just hoped that Lin would find out as soon as possible and save Meng Yao and Yushu. My name is Ma Zhu, and I've cultivated the Golden Bell Shield. I've already broken through the 8th level, and I'm invulnerable. The man in white said proudly, Killing you is like killing an ant. Ha ha. Chapter 875. News from Lingshan. The whole process didn't even take 10 minutes. Faubert felt his mind getting blurry as he listened to Ma Zhu's laughter. The police siren sounded, and the police car and ambulance arrived at the same time. One had to admit that their response speed was quite fast, but Ma Zhu was just a little faster. The owner of the store called the police, and he was shocked by the scene just now. He didn't hear the conversation between Ma Zhu and Faubert, but Ma Zhu sending Faubert flying with one slap was like watching a movie to a normal person. It was unbelievable. Organs and ribs were shattered, and there was basically no hope. This was the conclusion of the paramedics, and they couldn't send him to the hospital in time. They could only do emergency treatment in the ambulance. Lingshan was the second to arrive. The ones who had been dispatched were the patrol officers, but seeing that it was a vicious kidnapping and assault case, they'd immediately notified the criminal police. How is it? Lingshan got out of the car and ran over quickly. Captain Song. It was the owner of the store who called the police. He's the witness, and according to his testimony, the whole case is a kidnapping case. One of the patrol officers reported to Lingshan immediately, giving her the details of the case. Did you find out the identity of the hostage and the injured? Lingshan asked after listening to the case. According to the license plate number left at the scene, the Bentley belongs to Pengzhan Industries, and the driver, the injured one, is the driver of the chairman of Pengzhan Industries, Li Fu. According to his identity, the hostage should be Meng Yao and Yushu, the patrol officer said. What? Meng Yao and Yushu? Lingshan's eyes widened. Of course, what surprised her wasn't the identity of the hostage, but the injured Li Fu. She knew that Li Fu was Pengzhan's driver and bodyguard, and Li Fu's strength was recorded by the police. He was a late-phase Golden Class Peak physical practitioner, so how could he be so heavily injured that he couldn't even hold on anymore? What kind of strength did the kidnapper have? And according to the witness, the owner of the store was the one who sent Faubert flying with one palm. That person was at least a mystic class master. When did such a powerful master come to Songzhan? Why did he kidnap Meng Yao and Yushu? But Lin Yi was Meng Yao and Yushu's bodyguard, so the first person Lingshan thought it was Lin Yi. She had to inform Lin Yi about this as soon as possible, even if she didn't have a good impression of Meng Yao and Yushu. These two girls were always going against her, but that was business, and that was personal. Lingshan was very clear about that. And so, Lingshan sent Lu Wangli to notify Pengzhan, while she called Lin Yi. When Lin Yi contacted Faubert and realized that no one picked up the phone, he felt even more uneasy. Miss and Shu's phones were both turned off, and Faubert wasn't picking up either. What did this mean? It meant that something must have happened to the three of them. Faubert isn't picking up either. Lin Yi frowned and said to Tang Yun, You, hurry up and go take a look. Don't let anything happen. Tang Yun hesitated and said, Then take your breakfast and eat in the car. Lin Yi was also very worried about Meng Yao's safety. In theory, with Falbert there, nothing could happen to Meng Yao. But there was always an accident. What if another master like Yu Kuan came? Don't worry about me. I won't go. I'll go to school myself after eating. Tang Yin shook her head. She knew that now wasn't the time to be jealous. If something really happened to Meng Yao and Yu Shu, she would be a hindrance to Lin Yi if she followed him. So, Tang Yin didn't want to cause trouble. Okay. Lin Yi smiled at Tang Yin. He was very grateful for her understanding and held her hand. Be careful. What do I have to be careful about? Just be careful. Tang Yin would be fine if she went to school alone, but she was worried that something might happen to Lin. I'll be careful. Lin Yi nodded and walked out of the breakfast shop quickly. He drove to the road from the villa to school. He wanted to find Meng Yao and Yu Shu along this road. Lin Yi's phone rang not long after the car left the area. Lin Yi looked at the caller ID. It was Ling Shan. Hello? What's the matter? Lin Yi was worried about Meng Yao and Yu Shu's safety, so he didn't have the mood to talk to Ling Shan. Lin Yi, Meng Yao and Yu Shu are in trouble. They've been kidnapped, and Li Fu is heavily injured. He's in the emergency room now, but I'm afraid that he's in trouble. Ling Shan didn't mind Lin Yi's tone. She was used to Lin Yi's tone. As expected, Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. Something had happened. He didn't think that Ling Shan would respond this quickly. She was probably at the scene already. It had only been 10 minutes since Meng Yao's call. Where are you now? I'll be there immediately. Have you notified Uncle Chu? Lin Yi asked. I've already notified Chairman Chu, Ling Shan said. I'm at the Judian Circuit, in front of the Mingliang Culture Shop. You'll see it when you get there. There's a lot of police cars there, and they've set up a cordon. All right, I'll be there immediately. Lin Yi hung up and accelerated the car to the max. There were a lot of cars on the road in the morning, but Lin Yi used the Beetle's small size and skillful driving skills to weave through the traffic like a beetle. Lin Yi didn't slow down at all, going on the bus lane, going on the wrong lane, going on the sidewalk. Under the condition that his safety was guaranteed, Lin Yi had broken all the traffic rules he could. But Lin Yi didn't care about that anymore. Peng Zhan would pay the fine later. Meng Yao and Yu Shu's safety was his #1 priority. Of course, other than that, Lin Yi was worried about Falbert the most. After all, the Miss and Shu situation could be delayed, but Falbert's injuries couldn't be delayed. Lin Yi wanted to drive the car like it was a plane. Finally, Lin Yi arrived at the Judian Circuit within 5 minutes. A few police cars with flashing lights were parked on the side of the road. A group of police officers had set up a cordon to prevent pedestrians from getting close. Lin Yi quickly drove the car over, parked it next to the police line, and got out of the car. Chapter 876. Chapter 0875. Falbert's injuries. Ling Shan told me to come. Lin Yi said to the officer. He took out his phone to call Ling Shan when he saw Lu Wangli not far away. Lu Wangli. Lin Yi called out immediately. The officer saw that Lin Yi not only knew Ling Shan's name, but he also knew Lu Wangli. It was obvious that Ling Shan had asked him to come, and so he didn't stop him. Seeing Lu Wangli walk over, the officer went back to his own business. Lin Yi, you're here. Captain Song is over there. Lu Wangli pointed at a direction not far away. Where's Falbert? Bring me there. Lin Yi wasn't in a rush to find Ling Shan. He was worried about Falbert's injuries. Ling Shan said that Falbert was heavily injured and that he might not make it. This made Lin Yi a little worried, or else he wouldn't be driving so fast. Over here, Lu Wangli saw that Lin Yi was in such a rush, and his expression turned serious as well. He wasn't angry at Lin Yi's commanding tone, because he knew that Lin Yi was probably involved in the big cases that the police had cracked recently. Plus, Lin Yi and Ling Shan's relationship was very strange, and Lu Wangli had pretty much treated Lin Yi as Ling Shan's boyfriend. Lin Yi saw Falbert on the stretcher, and his face darkened. From the outside, Falbert's condition didn't look too good. Leave this place to me. Everyone go back and rest. Lin Yi walked over and said to the medical staff who were busy with the work. The medical staff didn't know who Lin Yi was, and they looked at Lin Yi curiously when they heard him, but they didn't leave. You guys go back. He can handle it here. Lu Wangli knew that Lin Yi wasn't simple, so he spoke up to help Lin Yi. I'm sorry, officer. It's our duty to save lives and help the injured. We can't leave until we receive orders from our superiors. A leading medic walked over and said to Lu Wangli, "Are you from the First People's Hospital or the Second People's Hospital? I'll talk to your dean." Lin, he was anxious. It wasn't that Lin, he didn't trust these medical staff, but they couldn't save Faubert at all. First People's Hospital. The medic didn't hide anything. He wasn't sure of Lin Yi's identity, but he couldn't leave without his superior's order. Lin, he quickly dialed Guan Xuemin's number and told him what had happened. He then asked for the medical staff's number. When the nurse heard that Lin, he was calling Guan Xuemin, she was stunned and asked, "May I ask if you're calling Guan Xuemin?" "Yes." "Do you know him?" Lin, he was delighted and asked, "Which doctor in Songshan doesn't know Professor Guan?" The doctor said, "Are you someone recommended by Professor Guan?" Lin, he let out a sigh of relief. He directly passed the phone to the medical staff and said, "I'm Guan Xuemin's disciple. Leave this to me. Elder Guan will explain to you." The medical staff picked up the phone and nodded after hearing Guan Xuemin's words. Guan Xuemin told him that Lin, he was his disciple. Leave this to Lin, and he would immediately call Dean Xin. The medical staff was relieved after hearing Guan Xuemin's words. Not long after hanging up the phone, the dean called. "Dean Xin, hello. I'm Xiao Lu." The medical staff quickly picked up the phone. Okay, I understand. We will definitely cooperate with Dr. Lin Yi." Dean Xin called and told him to try his best to fulfill Lin Yi's request and help Lin Yi save the patient. With the dean's words, Xiao Lu naturally didn't have to worry about anything. Lin Yi bent down and checked on Faubert's injuries. He couldn't help but take a deep breath. Indeed, Faubert was still alive. However, it wasn't because the opponent wasn't strong enough to kill Faubert. The opponent did it on purpose to leave Faubert alive. Judging from Fu Bo's injuries, the other party should have only used one move. In other words, the other party's strength was far greater than Fu Bo's. So, if the other party wanted to take Fu Bo's life, it should be a piece of cake. However, the opponent didn't do it because he didn't want Faubert to die. He probably said a few words to Faubert after he used the move. However, the most likely reason was to let Lin Yi heal Faubert's injuries. This would cause Lin Yi's strength to drop by a level. To save or not to save? Lin Yi hesitated for a moment. Emotionally speaking, Faubert treated him well. Ever since he came to Songshan, Faubert had always been kind to him and treated him like a member of the mansion. Therefore, Lin Yi didn't want anything to happen to Faubert. However, logically speaking, Lin Yi knew that using his energy to heal Faubert wasn't a smart move. The opponent had a master. If he used his energy to heal Faubert, then his strength would definitely be affected. If that happened, he might not even be able to save Meng Yao and Yu Shu. Although the energy could be easily obtained from the Jade Space, it still needed time. Lin Yi didn't know if he could make it in time. Lin Yi gritted his teeth. He had to save Faubert first. At least before there was news of Meng Yao and Yu Shu, he couldn't leave them to die. A few silver needles appeared in Lin Yi's hands. He quickly inserted them into a few acupoints on Faubert's body. He then started the art of dragon mastery. This time, it was similar to when he healed Lu Buojia. Lin Yi used the silver needles to seal a few of Faubert's meridians. Lin Yi planned to use his energy to prolong Faubert's life first, but he didn't plan to directly heal him, because Lin Yi knew very well how terrifying the amount of energy needed to heal a person who was on the verge of death was. He was afraid that after he healed Faubert, he would enter automatic sleep mode. Doing this now was undoubtedly very dangerous. Right now, Lin Yi could only use a small portion of his energy to prolong Faubert's life. As long as he stayed alive, Lin Yi would have time to heal him after everything was over. But whether or not Faubert's martial arts could be preserved was another matter. A physical practitioner with such a serious injury was probably completely crippled. Although Lin Yi could use his energy to create a golden class dog, he couldn't use it to create a golden class master. The amount of energy required for a human and a dog was worlds apart. Creating a golden class dog would force Lin Yi in a hibernation mode, let alone a golden class master. If it were possible, Xiao Xiao would have been a golden class master a long time ago. Chapter 877. The Target Full. Lin Yi breathed out in relief. Falbert's life was safe. Whether or not he could recover his strength wasn't something Lin Yi cared about. This was all Lin Yi could do. Even so, Lin Yi was sweating profusely. He'd used up quite a bit of energy. After all, that palm strike was enough to take Falbert's life. Lin Yi hadn't healed Falbert completely, but that was only the body and bones. Lin Yi had to use his energy to repair the organs. Otherwise, any damage to any organ would be enough to take Falbert's life. If it weren't for Falbert's extraordinary physique, a normal person wouldn't be able to hold on until now. Lin Yi wiped the sweat off his forehead and raised his head to see Lingshan and Pengzhan already there, looking at him anxiously. Lingshan had seen Lin Yi heal before, and after she arrived, she sent everyone around Lin Yi away, sending Lu Wangli and his platoon to protect Lin Yi, preventing anyone from disturbing Lin Yi. "Yi, how is it?" Pengzhan's face was very serious, his eyebrows furrowed. He was worried about his daughter's safety, but he was also worried about Falbert's injuries. "His life is safe, but I can't say if he'll be able to recover his strength. After all, Falbert is a physical practitioner, and his body was damaged to this extent." Lin Yi shrugged. His energy could only restore the damaged parts to their original state, as if he'd been reborn, but he couldn't make Falbert's body and bones return to their original state. That was something that could only be achieved after a long period of training, and it wasn't something that Lin Yi's energy could change. It wasn't like the qi of a spiritual practitioner, which could be replenished through energy conversion. This was the biggest difference between a spiritual practitioner and a physical practitioner. Once the meridians of an inner force expert were destroyed, the true qi in their body would not be able to be preserved, and they would become a cripple. On the other hand, once a physical expert's body suffered a serious injury, even if he healed, his body would not be able to return to its previous state. He would basically be no different from a normal person. "It's fine as long as you're alive." Pengzhan let out a sigh of relief. It didn't matter if Falbert could recover his strength or not. As long as he could survive, Pengzhan and Falbert may be master and servant in name, but they'd been together for so many years. Humans weren't plants or trees, so how could they be emotionless? The relationship between him and Falbert was more or less that of an old friend. Even if he had to go bankrupt, he'd still want Falbert to live. "How are Yao Yao and Shu? Any news?" Lin Yi's face was a little pale. Healing Falbert had obviously used up a lot of his stamina, and he wasn't suited for battle in this state. However, the situation was urgent, and he couldn't afford a rest. The two Aurora SUVs that the kidnappers drove were all fake, and they used the license plate of a car rental company in Donghai. After checking through the POS machine, the original car model was a Honda CR-V, and we can't confirm the identity of the kidnappers at the moment. Lu Wangli told him what he had found out from the investigation. The kidnappers are very cunning. They should have a strong anti-tracking ability. Only a few cameras on the main roads captured the two cars. After that, they disappeared. There are two possibilities. One is that the kidnappers changed cars, and the other is that the kidnappers intentionally avoided some cameras when they arrived at their destination. Pengzhan nodded and sighed softly. He didn't even know who his opponent was this time, and he was completely at his wit's end. After hearing Lu Wangli's words, he couldn't help but turn to look at Lin Yi, hoping that he could give him an idea. "Uncle Chu, since the kidnappers kidnapped Yao Yao and Shu, they must have a purpose. I believe that they will contact us first." Lin Yi sighed and said, if the kidnappers didn't want to use Yao Yao and Shu for some purpose, they wouldn't have kidnapped them. If it was just a grudge, then they would have been killed on the spot like Falbert. "Yeah, but they're both girls." Pengzhan actually thought of the same thing. Since the kidnappers kidnapped his daughter and Shu, they must be trying to use them for some purpose, but he was afraid that the kidnappers would be tempted. Instead of being troubled here, why don't we go back and wait for the kidnappers' call? Lin Yi suggested. He needed to continue sleeping for a while to replenish his stamina. Otherwise, even if there was news of the kidnappers, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to fight them. "Okay." Peng Zhan was no longer the high-spirited chairman of a company, but an anxious father. He didn't have any ideas, but since Lin Yi suggested to go back and wait, there was nothing else he could do. Lingshan didn't stop him because she knew that if Lin Yi couldn't solve the problem, there was no point for her to be anxious. Since Lin Yi wanted to go back, then let him go. As for Faubert, Lin Yi didn't send him to the hospital. Instead, he asked Liu to send him to the villa. Lin Yi had Faubert's injuries under control. As long as Faubert didn't get injured again, his condition wouldn't worsen. At this moment, only Lin Yi, Peng Zhan, and Faubert were left in the villa, along with General Wei Wu, the golden class dog. Are we just going to wait for the kidnappers to contact us? Peng Zhan looked at his watch anxiously. It had been more than an hour, and the kidnappers hadn't called yet. It made him restless. Other than that, I can't think of any better ideas. Lin Yi sighed as well. The most important thing is that I need to rest. Chapter 878. The kidnappers' demands with House Yu's style of doing things. They should be here for revenge. Why do they kidnap Meng Yao and Yushu? After killing Faubert, they should be here for him. However, the kidnappers didn't do that. So, Lin Yi thought for a long time and crossed out the possibility of House Yu, leaving only Zhang Yingjun. Although Lin didn't know Zhang Yingjun's background, if Zhang Yingjun could really find such a master to help him, he might be able to do what he did. Firstly, although Zhang Yingjun had a grudge against him, the grudge wasn't with him, but with Meng Yao and Yushu. Meng Yao and Yushu were the ones who made him lose face in the billiard room. Although he helped them secretly, Zhang Yingjun didn't know that. After that, at the door of the billiard room, although he was the one who punished him, the one who asked him to punish him was Yushu. So, if the kidnappers were Zhang Yingjun's men, everything would be explained. However, Lin Yi felt uneasy when he thought that the kidnappers were Zhang Yingjun. Zhang Yingjun had been drooling over Meng Yao and Yushu for a long time. Would he do anything to them after this kidnapping? Lu Wangli's deduction was correct. The kidnappers had changed their car in a secluded place. Two identical Land Rovers on the road was simply too eye-catching, and it would easily attract the attention of the police. So, in an empty alley, the man in black and Ma Zhu brought Meng Yao and Yushu to an old Toyota Previa that had been prepared. Previa was also called the Tyrant. It was an early model of business car, and there were a lot of them in the market. After changing the car, the group of people didn't stand out and looked very ordinary. As for the two Land Rovers, the people who had contacted them quickly removed the fake license plates and replaced them with real license plates. Each person took one and drove off in two different directions. This way, no one would suspect them anymore. After getting in the car, one of the men in black called Zhang Yingjun, "Master Jun, the hostages are in our hands. We changed cars safely." "Oh, that's great. Good job. I'll call Peng Zhan right now." Zhang Yingjun danced happily when he heard that the plan went smoothly. "Oh right, how's Master Ma?" "Old Ma has already followed your instructions and didn't completely kill Li Fu. If Lin Yi wants to save him, he will have to expend a large amount of true qi. At that time, his strength will definitely be weakened and he won't be a threat anymore." The man in black reported. "Good, that's great. Come quickly. I can't wait anymore." Zhang Yingjun nodded. Previously, in order to successfully kill Lin Yi, he purposely told Ma Zhu not to kill Faubert and to leave him alive. Isn't Lin Yi a doctor? If he wanted Faubert to live, he would need to expend a large amount of true qi. This was the plan that Zhang Yingjun thought of when Yao Wang treated him. If he used Faubert's injuries to hold Lin Yi back and make Lin Yi use up a large amount of true qi, then no matter how skilled he was, he wouldn't be a match for Ma Zhu and the firearms team. A medical expert would need to use up a large amount of qi to heal someone. This was also proven by Ma Zhu, which was why the previous scene happened. Otherwise, Ma Zhu would need to tell Uncle Fu so many times that he kept him alive just to clear up his doubts. This was just to confuse Faubert and make him not know his real purpose. Otherwise, Ma Zhu wouldn't have the time to waste with Faubert. Chu Pingzhan sat on the sofa and waited for the kidnapper's call. However, he felt restless and couldn't calm down at all. Chu Pingzhan glanced at Lin Yi, who was resting with his eyes closed, and stood up abruptly. He felt that he had to do something, but after standing up, He didn't know what to do. Although he was resting with his eyes closed, he wasn't idling around. He was thinking of a plan in his mind. Zhen Yingjuan's actions had already touched Lin Yi's bottom line. He was thinking that if the kidnappers didn't call after he recovered his strength, then Lin Yi would go straight to House Zhen and dig them out even if he had to dig 3 feet into the ground. Just when Chu Pingzhan stood up, the phone in his pocket suddenly rang. Chu Pingzhan quickly took it out and looked at the caller ID. It was a hidden number with all the numbers 0. "Hello, I'm Chu Pingzhan." Chu Pingzhan was very sure that the caller was the kidnappers. After all, normal people didn't need to hide their numbers when they called. "Hello, Mr. Chu. It's my pleasure to meet you." There was a piercing voice on the other side of the phone. It was obvious that the voice had been changed by a voice changer. The fake politeness made Chu Pingzhan even more uncomfortable. "Who are you? What's the matter?" Chu Pingzhan frowned and asked. "Who I am isn't important. What's important is that you want to know the whereabouts of your daughter and her best friend. I'm an insider." Wah ha ha ha. The person on the phone was unscrupulous and fearless. "My daughter and Shu were kidnapped by you? What do you want?" Chu Pingzhan was completely sure of the identity of the caller. It must be the kidnappers. However, this made Chu Pingzhan feel a little more at ease. As long as the kidnappers were willing to contact him, it was a good thing. Chu Pingzhan wasn't afraid that the kidnappers would give him some conditions. He was afraid that the kidnappers wouldn't accept the conditions and would take his daughter away silently. "Mr. Chu, you're wrong. What do you mean I kidnapped them? I'm just an insider," the person said shamelessly. "I only heard that Mr. Chu offered a reward of 200 million to anyone who can provide information. Is that true?" Pengzhan was infuriated by the caller. What the hell was this guy trying to do? He wanted a ransom, but he said it was a bounty. Yes. But Chu Pingzhan knew that he shouldn't anger the kidnappers. He could only nod and say, "That's right. You want 200 million? I can give it to you, but you must guarantee the safety of my daughter and Shu. If they are harmed, I won't give you the money." Chapter 879. Another 50 million indeed. Zhen Dazhou had investigated Pengzhan Industries and Pengzhan's personal assets, and the amount he was asking for was within the limits of what Pengzhan could accept. He only wanted cash, not shares or real estate, since he couldn't sell them at all. Wouldn't he be waiting for the police to catch him? He wasn't an idiot. "Mr. Chu, I'm just a good Samaritan, and I can only guarantee that your daughter and her best friend come back alive. As for whether or not they get hurt, that's not my concern. That's what the kidnappers do." The caller said shamelessly, not afraid of Pengzhan's threat at all. Pengzhan's heart froze. He was afraid that his daughter and Shu would be harmed by the kidnappers, and it was highly likely that they would do that. Pengzhan gripped the phone tightly, his body trembling. "How can I not hurt Yao Yao and Shu? I can give you however much you want." "Oh, it seems like you don't want to work with me anymore, Mr. Chu." The caller changed the topic with a cold smile. "All right then. Just wait to collect your daughter's and her best friend's bodies." "Wait." Pengzhan sighed. It seemed like his daughter and Shu coming back alive was already a blessing, and he couldn't care less about the humiliation. It wasn't something his daughter and Shu wanted, and it was fine as long as they didn't make it public. It was better than dying. "Oh, did you change your mind again, Mr. Chu?" The caller seemed to know that Pengzhan would change his mind and continue the conversation. "All right, I promise you, but please don't hurt them. If possible, I'll think of a way to give you another 50 million as compensation." Pengzhan said, Pengzhan, am a man of my word. You can ask around in the business world about my trustworthiness. I'm a man of my word. I hope you could trust me. Naturally, I know about your trustworthiness, but this isn't up to me." The caller said faintly. "Go get the money now. I'll call you later and tell you how to pay." "No problem. I'll prepare it as soon as possible," Pengzhan said. "Don't call the police, or your daughter will die a horrible death," the caller reminded Pengzhan. Pengzhan smiled coldly inwardly. Weren't you supposed to be a good Samaritan? I'm not allowed to call the police again. Did he finally give himself away? But Pengzhan, naturally, wouldn't say what he was thinking. He didn't want to provoke the criminal. "Don't worry, it won't happen." In actuality, Pengzhan didn't plan on calling the police. There was obviously a master on the other side, and the police's involvement would only anger them. Even if they managed to save his daughter in the end, they might not be able to stop the master. What would they do in the future? This would definitely provoke these people to retaliate even more crazily. The next time, it wouldn't be as simple as kidnapping. Perhaps he would be directly killed like Faubert. Lin Yi's phone rang not long after Pingzhan hung up. Lin Yi had been training in the Jade space, but he could still hear the conversation between Pingzhan and the kidnappers. He didn't say anything, however, because he wanted to make the most of every second he had to recover his strength. Now that his phone was ringing, Lin Yi could only return to reality from the training space. He picked up the phone, thinking that it was also the kidnappers, but it was Ling Shan's number. "Hello, any news?" Lin Yi asked. "We've already monitored Mr. Pingzhan's phone, and we've heard the call from the kidnappers, but we didn't manage to locate them. The call came from a foreign IP phone server." Ling Shan said, a little regretful. "Do you need us to do anything?" "Not at the moment. I can handle it myself. They obviously have a master, and you're not their match." Lin Yi rejected Ling Shan's help. Ling Shan wasn't too happy with the words "you're not his opponent," but she understood that she really wasn't his opponent. She and Faubert were evenly matched. One was a late-phase golden-class spiritual practitioner, and the other was a late-phase golden-class peak physical practitioner. If they really fought, they should be evenly matched. But the kidnappers could injure Faubert with one palm. Ling Shan would probably end up the same if she went. "Then, be careful. Miss Dummy is cheering for you." Ling Shan didn't know why, but she was a little worried. He pressured her so much, and she was actually worried for him? Ling Shan didn't understand her own thoughts either. Okay. Lin Yi hung up. The reason why Songshan was called Songshan was because there were many mountains nearby. Other than Shuangyan Mountain that was developed into a tourist attraction, some of the steeper mountains weren't developed. Normally, no one would go up there. Among these steep mountains, there was one called South Mirror Mountain. Of course, this was a common name given to the mountain by the locals. As for the geographical name of the mountain, almost no one could say for sure. Even the name of this mountain might not be on the map. The reason why South Mirror Mountain was called South Mirror Mountain was because it was located to the south of Songshan. The name Mirror meant that the mountain was very steep and full of rocks. After the rain, it was as smooth as a mirror. In short, there was nothing on the mountain, and normal people wouldn't go up there. Today, there were 2 cars parked at the foot of the mountain. One was a Benz with a Donghai license plate, and the other was a Toyota Previa. On the mountain, Zhan Yingjun just called Pingzhan with a voice changer. He hesitated for a moment. Originally, he wanted to ask Pingzhan for 200 million, play with his daughter in Yushu, and then kill Lin Yi. That would be the end of the debt. However, when he said that Pingzhan would give him another 50 million, he was tempted. That was 50 million. He only spent 40 million on the doctor, and Pingzhan added another 50 million. The condition was that he couldn't hurt Meng Yao and Yushu. Zhen Yingjun would be lying if he said that he wasn't tempted. He was really tempted. What kind of concept was 50 million? 10,000 was enough to find a prostitute, let alone 50 million. It was too much for him to play with Meng Yao and Yushu. Chapter 880. Drool over it. Long Meng Yao and Yushu were the best of the best. He had never seen such beautiful girls in Donghai before, and he didn't want to give them up just like that. Fuck, 50 million it was worth it. He would pretend that Pingzhan never said anything. Thinking of this, Zhan Yingjun gritted his teeth and walked towards the cave. After negotiating the price with Pingzhan, it was time for him to enjoy the 2 beauties. After Meng Yao and Yushu woke up, they realized that their hands and feet were tied up and they were thrown into a cave. The light was dim and they couldn't see clearly. "Yao Yao, sis, are you awake?" Yushu subconsciously called Meng Yao as soon as she woke up. Yes. Meng Yao woke up 10 minutes earlier than Yushu. She was looking around the cave with an indescribable sadness on her face. The scene of Faubert flying out kept appearing in her mind. Meng Yao really hoped that it was just a dream and everything would be over when she woke up, but it wasn't a dream. Where are we? Are we dreaming? Yushu just woke up and was a little dazed. We're not dreaming, we're caught. Meng Yao shook her head and said sadly, "I wonder how Faubert is. Is he okay? He should be okay. Don't forget that Shield Bro is a miracle doctor. He can even cure General Weiwu. Yushu was very optimistic. It's not the same. If Lin he wants to save Faubert, he'll need a lot of time and use up a lot of pure energy. If he wants to save us now, he can't save Faubert. Meng Yao thought that Lin he would save Faubert, but the more she thought about it, the less likely it was, unless Lin he didn't care about her and Shu anymore. Yushu heard Meng Yao's words and started to worry. You guys woke up? That's great. If not, I'll have to wake you up. I don't like unresponsive women. Zhen Yingjun walked into the cave and was surprised to see Meng Yao and Yushu awake. Zhen Yingjun, it's you? So you kidnapped us. Meng Yao was trying to guess who captured them and who had such a deep grudge against them that they wanted to kill Faubert. But she didn't expect it to be Zhen Yingjun. That's right, it's me. Zhen Yingjun laughed. How is it? You didn't expect this, did you? I didn't expect that. We don't have any deep hatred, do we? Why did you do it? Meng Yao asked. She was trying her best to buy time. She knew that the longer she delayed, the more time Lin he would have to save them. No, you made me have a crooked mouth and crippled legs. And you say I don't have a deep hatred for you? The most infuriating thing is that he even did something to my body, causing me to be impotent. Zhen Yingjun was enraged when Meng Yao mentioned the hatred between them. His eyes were filled with anger. Thank God Yao Wang saved me, or I would have become a living eunuch. This was all because I kicked an old lady who was picking up scraps, and what I kicked was the sack in her hands. And you guys let that bastard do this to me? Don't you think this is a deep grudge? Meng Yao and Yushu paused. They knew that Lin he had given him a crooked mouth and a limp leg, but they didn't think much of it, thinking that it was just a temporary thing. They didn't know that Lin he had given him some sort of impotence. The two couldn't help but blush when they heard the word, since it involved their privacy. However, they didn't let Lin he make Zhen Yingjun impotent. Did Lin he do it on his own? Even if Lin he did it on his own, they didn't blame Lin he. After all, Lin he did it for them. Then what do you want? Meng Yao didn't dwell on the question and asked directly. What do I want? My impotence has just been cured, and I'm looking for a girl to test it on. I've been drooling over you two for a long time, so I'll test it on you two today. Zhen Yingjun said fiercely. Meng Yao was shocked. She didn't expect Zhen Yingjun to do this. She was shocked, angry, and scared at the same time. She looked at Zhen Yingjun. How dare you? If you do that, the consequences will be severe. Consequences? What consequences can there be? Zhen Yingjun laughed nonchalantly. I've already called Chu Pengzhan, and even he allowed me to do something to you. As long as I don't kill you, what's there for me to be afraid of? Lin he will kill you. Meng Yao wasn't afraid at all. She didn't expect Zhen Yingjun to call her father already. Yeah, Yao Yao Sis and I are Shield Bro's first and second wives. He will kill you. Yushu added. Lin he is in a precarious situation himself. He will die soon. Although Zhen Yingjun used to be afraid of Lin he was already a dead man in his eyes. Under the combined attack of the firearms team and Ma Zhu, Lin he had no chance of surviving. Meng Yao was shocked. She didn't think that Zhen Yingjun was boasting. He must have his reasons. After all, Uncle Fu was severely injured by the master beside him, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. What if the master was stronger than Lin he? Then Lin he coming here was no doubt a suicide mission. She didn't want Lin he to come here anymore. All right, cut the bullshit. Which one of you is going to give yourself first? Zhen Yingjun looked at Meng Yao and Yushu with a lecherous smile. He felt that his lower body was reacting. Yao Wang was so powerful. He didn't have any reaction when he took Viagra, but after being treated by Zhen Yingjun, he became majestic all of a sudden. Oh wait, I need to go to the washroom. You go out first. Yushu suddenly said to Zhen Yingjun. Washroom. Zhen Yingjun froze. He didn't expect Yushu to want to go to the washroom at this time. He asked subconsciously, do you want to go to the washroom? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Yushu said, I also want to go to the washroom. Meng Yao didn't know what Yushu meant, but she knew that Yushu was always weird and had a lot of ideas. She must have her reasons for wanting to go to the washroom at this time. Fuck, what a lazy donkey. Zhen Yingjun was furious. He was in high spirits, and these two wanted to go to the washroom. He had no choice but to say, Then hurry up. Go out for a while. Otherwise, how can we come out in front of you? Yushu said. Chapter 881. You would know if you don't go out, I can't come out. I will pee my pants. Yushu didn't give up. You? Jun Ingjun cursed. You win. If Yushu and Meng Yao really peed their pants, how disgusting would that be? There was no place to take a shower in the cave. How was it going to play if they peed their pants? Jun Ingjun had no choice but to leave the cave. But Yushu called out again, Hey, how can I go to the washroom with my hands tied up? Jun Ingjun cursed Yushu for being a busybody. He walked over, lowered his head, and untied the ropes on Yushu's hands and feet. Under the dim light in the cave, Yushu's blush made her look even more alluring. Jun Ingjun was tempted, and he wanted to grab her breasts. A girl with a child's face and huge breasts was rare. Just when Jun Ingjun wanted to have some fun, Yushu said, Don't touch me. I will pee my pants if you touch me. Huh? Jun Ingjun was shocked by Yushu's words. His hands that were hanging in the air stopped abruptly. He glared at Yushu. Why are you so troublesome? Hurry up. You will really pee your pants later. Yushu ignored Jun Ingjun and continued to rush him. Jun Ingjun scoffed, stood up, and walked out of the cave. He wanted to peek in from the outside, but the blinding light from the outside was a stark contrast to the darkness in the cave. He couldn't see anything from the outside. It was pitch black. Jun Ingjun could only give up and go check on the gun team's ambush. He had to make sure that after he lured Lin Yi here, he would shoot Lin Yi to death. However, he couldn't expose his men and raise Lin Yi's vigilance. It was hard to hide in the sparse forest on the mountain, so the gun team could only find a rock to cover themselves and hope that Lin Yi would kill them in one shot. In the cave, Yushu wasn't in a hurry to go to the washroom. She opened her bag first, thinking that the men in black had taken her phone, but not her bag. The bag was still straddling her, even when they were tied up. Shu, what are you doing? Aren't you going to the washroom? Meng Yao asked. What for? We didn't even drink water in the morning. I tricked Jun Ingjun to go out so that we can prepare ourselves. We can't let him do that, Yushu said as she quickly flipped through her bag. Meng Yao frowned. You have a way to avoid it? Yeah, I don't like him. Yao Yao sis, you should save your first time for Shield Bro. How can you give it to an idiot like him? Yushu nodded. Why am I involved again? You wanted to give it to Lin Yi, didn't you? Meng Yao didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she glared at Yushu, still in the mood to joke around at a time like this. Oh, you have to think about it first. I'm the small wife. Yushu suddenly shouted in surprise. I found it. Meng Yao looked at the thing in Yushu's hands. It was a pack of sanitary napkins. She paused for a moment and understood Yushu's plan, but she was still suspicious. You want to trick him with this? Will it work? Although that Jun Ingjun looks dumb, he shouldn't be that easy to trick, right? Of course it won't work, but what if I add some spices? Yushu smiled mischievously as she took out the red ink she'd bought this morning. She opened up 2 sanitary napkins and quickly poured the ink on them before tossing them into a corner of the cave. She then took out a bottle of water and poured it on them, pretending like she'd just taken a shower. Ugh. Meng Yao was a little dumbfounded. Was this even possible? But it did look like it if she didn't look closely. Phew, I'm not done yet. Yushu took out 2 sanitary napkins and poured the fountain water on them before stuffing them into her pants. Shoo. You. Meng Yao's eyes widened. That's so much fountain water, it's so dirty. Yao Yao, what about you? Come, I'll help you put it in your pants. Yushu took out another sanitary napkin and said to Meng Yao. Me? Me too, Meng Yao said, feeling disgusted as she looked at the sanitary napkin that was covered in ink. Oh, Yao Yao, if you don't want to take a shower, just bear with it for a while. We can always go home and take a shower. Yushu didn't really care. Meng Yao could only acquiesce to Yushu's words. It felt weird, but Meng Yao had to admit that Yushu's idea wasn't bad after everything was done. Yushu closed her bag and hid the fountain water. Done. Although Yushu's idea prevented the two from being violated by Jun Ingjun, Meng Yao felt sad when she thought of Faubert. Shoo, it's our fault for hurting Faubert. If we didn't want to mess with Jun Ingjun, this wouldn't have happened. I think that Shield Bro will have a way. Yushu trusted Lin Yi. You really trust him? Meng Yao also hoped that Lin Yi would save Faubert first. It'd be best if he didn't come to save her and Shu. From Jun Ingjun's tone, he seemed to be prepared. If Linny came, it'd be dangerous. Oh, it's all right. Yushu nodded. Yao Yao, don't you trust Shield, bro? He saved us so many times already. I don't know. Ming Yao shook her head. She was a little down because of Faubert. As they talked, Jun Ingjun returned to the cave. Hey, are you two done peeing? Dilly-dallying, you really have a lot of things to do. Oh, I'm done. Is there anything else? Yushu asked. What is it? Of course it's us. Jun Ingjun chuckled, and a trace of desire flashed across his eyes. I don't think you can do it today. Yushu said regretfully. Can't do it? You think I can't do it? If I say I can, then I must. Jun Ingjun was amused by Yushu's words. She was already in his hands, and she was still saying such childish words. No, I mean, we're here for that, Yushu said with a shrug. Doing that? Which one? Jun Ingjun froze for a second and reacted immediately. He looked at Yushu in disbelief. Really? Are you lying to a ghost? But you're not a ghost. Yushu shook her head. If you don't believe me, look over there. There's our sanitary napkins. Chapter 882. Successful deception. Jun Ingjun had a problem since he was young, and that was getting dizzy when he saw the blood. He quickly stood up, but he still couldn't believe that the two of them could do that together. How could there be such a coincidence? Jun Ingjun didn't doubt the authenticity of the sanitary napkin on the ground, because the light in the cave was dim and he couldn't see if it was blood or something else. All he thought was that it didn't make sense for the two of them to do it together. You two came together? Jun Ingjun frowned as he looked at Yushu and Ming Yao. Yeah, actually, we're Lin Yi's first and second wives, and we always do threesomes together. In order to ensure that we can do it for 25 days a month, we purposely mixed our periods with medicine, Yushu said shyly with a serious face. Huh? Jun Ingjun froze. You're not asteriskous? Of course not. Yushu looked at Jun Ingjun in disdain. We're already 18 years old. How can we still be asteriskous? Jun Ingjun was confused by Yushu and didn't know if she was telling the truth or not. However, Meng Yao did say that if he touched them, Lin Yi would kill him. Could they really be Lin Yi's first and second wives? Wasn't Lin Yi a bodyguard? That's right. A master medicine like Lin Yi would be treated like a VIP no matter where he went. Even Master Bing respected Yao Wang. So how could Lin Yi be willing to be a follower for two girls? Jun Ingjun didn't believe that Lin Yi had nothing to do with them. Now, it seemed like Yushu wasn't lying. You're not lying? Take off your pants, let me check. Jun Ingjun would believe it if Meng Yao did it, but Yushu was too cunning and he didn't believe her. Oh, okay. I'll show it to you. Turn around first. Yushu said to Jun Ingjun. Don't play tricks. Take off your pants and let me see. Jun Ingjun naturally wouldn't turn around, as he was afraid that Yushu would play tricks on him. Okay. I'll take it out for you to see. Yushu turned around and quickly took out something from her pants and passed it to Jun Ingjun. Here. Jun Ingjun was shocked when Yushu handed him something bloody. He subconsciously moved back and took a closer look. It was indeed a sanitary napkin with blood on it. He quickly waved his hand. Take it away. Take it away. He had a phobia for blood, and the sight of it made him dizzy. But now, he believed Yushu's words. These two really did it. Yushu threw the bloody sanitary napkin to the side and waved her hand, scaring Jun Ingjun into hiding again. Actually, if we didn't do it, we wouldn't mind being played with by you, as long as you don't tell Lin Yi, Yushu said regretfully. But the day you chose isn't good. Why don't you wait a few days? We're in your hands anyway. It doesn't matter if you wait a few days. Fuck. So fucking unlucky. How could it be red? Jun Ingjun saw that he had no chance and ignored Yushu. He tied Yushu's hands and feet together while cursing and tied Ming Yao's hands and feet again. He instinctively rejected blood, so after tying the rope, he didn't want to stay here any longer. He stood up and walked out of the cave. However, as soon as he reached the entrance of the cave, Jun Ingjun burst into laughter again. Waha! It seems like even the heavens want me to be rich. Zhen Yingjun suddenly remembered that if he didn't touch Meng Yao and Yushu, didn't Peng Zhan promise him another 50 million? Now that he calmed down and thought about it, 50 million to play with two girls, and they weren't virgins? That was a huge loss for him. Money was the best. With 50 million, he could get any girl he wanted. Zhen Yingjun gave up on the idea of violating Meng Yao and Yushu and became more rational. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it wasn't worth it. Fortunately, these two girls were popular. Otherwise, he would have lost 50 million yuan just because of that moment of pleasure. Zhen Yingjun picked up his phone and dialed Peng Zhan's number again. Peng Zhan wanted to discuss a plan with Lin Yi after receiving the call, but Ling Shan's call came before he could even open his mouth. The kidnappers asked for 200 million, Peng Zhan said after Ling Shan and Lin Yi hung up. The kidnappers asked for 200 million, then give it to him. I'm just afraid that he won't be able to spend it even if he takes it, Lin Yi said indifferently. I also think so. As long as Yao Yao and Shu are safe and sound, no matter how much money it is, I will give it to him. Peng Zhan sighed. But it sounds like a kidnapper. He has other intentions towards Yao Yao and Shu. This was what he was most worried about. He hoped that the two girls could buy as much time as they could and wait for him to save them. That Shu girl was smart. She should be able to think of a way to deal with this situation. As the two were talking, Peng Zhan's phone rang again. Peng Zhan looked at the caller ID with a serious expression. It was still the same number with a bunch of zeros. He picked it up seriously. Hello, Mr. Chu. After careful consideration, I've decided to accept your suggestion. 250 million. I won't hurt your daughter and her best friend. What do you think? Zhen Yingjun was glad that he didn't have sex with Meng Yao and Yushu. If he did, he would lose the money. Okay, I agree. 250 million it is. Peng Zhan was surprised and happy after hearing Zhen Yingjun's words. He had already prepared for the worst and didn't expect the kidnappers to agree to his suggestion. It seemed like the kidnappers valued money more than anything else. Peng Zhan didn't know that Yushu caused a strange incident that made Zhen Yingjun give up. Great, but I don't want you to give it to me later. I want you to give me 250 million together. Is that okay? Although Zhen Yingjun knew that Peng Zhan had a good reputation, that was only for business partners. He was playing the role of a kidnapper. How could he talk about his reputation with a kidnapper? Chapter 883. Chapter 0882. Borrowing money from Lin Yi. With that thought, Peng Zhan nodded. Okay, I promise you. But how can I give you the money? After I give it to you, will you let my daughter and Shu go immediately? I'll give you an account, and you can transfer the money there. After I check the account, I'll give you an address. Tell a man named Lin Yi to pick up your daughter and her best friend. Remember, he can only come alone. If there are too many people, we will kill the hostages. Zhen Yingjun said, Of course, I believe that Mr. Chu is a smart man and won't call the police. The masters around me can kill Faubert, so naturally, they can also kill your family silently. Although Peng Zhan was suspicious why Zhen Yingjun asked Lin Yi to pick up the hostages, he only had Lin Yi by his side. If Lin Yi didn't go, who else could he ask? Okay, I won't call the police. I hope you will keep your promise. Peng Zhan said, Don't worry, we kidnappers have our own rules. Just look at our professionalism, and you should believe that we are professionals. Zhen Yingjun said, The account number is XXXXX. Zhen Yingjun told him the account number, and after Peng Zhan wrote it down, he confirmed it with him before hanging up. After the threat, Zhen Yingjun believed that Peng Zhan wouldn't dare to call the police. With Ma Zhu's strength, Peng Zhan would definitely be afraid that he would take revenge on him. Peng Zhan was now an influential figure in Peng Zhan Industries, so no one dared to say anything when Peng Zhan mobilized the company's cash flow. However, the total cash flow was only 210 million. Of course, this was at the expense of the company's future operations. Peng Zhan Industries wouldn't have a single cent of liquid funds left once the 210 million was taken out. It would be a fatal blow to Peng Zhan Industries, but Peng Zhan didn't care about that. He was worried about his daughter's safety. Even if he had to resign from his position as chairman and give his shares to the shareholders as compensation, he didn't mind. Lin Yi didn't know much about business operations, but he didn't know what would happen if a company ran out of liquid funds. Uncle Chu, let me help you, Lin Yi said when Peng Zhan was about to withdraw all of the company's funds. You? Peng Zhan was slightly taken aback. He didn't know that Lin Yi and Fatty Lai had started a company, and Meng Yao didn't tell him either. He only thought that Lin Yi and Fatty Lai had a good relationship, but he didn't know that Lin Yi played a role in Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. Lin Yi took out his phone and called Fatty Lai. Fatty Lai, how much cash do you have? Boss? Cash. Why are you suddenly asking this? What's wrong? What happened? Fatty Lai asked. It's an emergency, Lin Yi said. Cash. We can only get 30 to 40 million at most. All the money from the auction was used to buy the production line and build a factory. Our products aren't on the market yet, so most of the funds are stored in the warehouse for medicine. Fatty Lai explained. 40 million, that's too little. Lin Yi sighed. He didn't expect money to be so careless. Opening a medical company required so much investment. In fact, Fatty Lai also wanted to be the biggest medical company, and he bought the most advanced production line in the world. Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company was different from Dr. Kang's medical company. Other than injury medicine, Miracle Dr. Guan would also release more advanced medicine, such as painkillers. If it was possible, the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing could be mass-produced as well. That would require very advanced equipment, so Fatty Lai decided to get everything done in one go. According to the current calculations, 30 to 40 million in liquid funds was enough to successfully push Miracle Dr. Guan's first hit product, Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine, onto the market. 30 to 40 million wasn't even needed. Because of the poisoning of the first middle school students, Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company's name had already spread far and wide. There was no need to advertise anymore. Once the product was put on the market and the sales increased, it could instantly generate hundreds of millions of profits. Lin Yi knew that Fatty Lai was planning according to the company's current situation. He probably didn't expect him to suddenly need money, so he didn't blame him. Boss, should I borrow some money from my brother? Fatty Lai could tell that Lin Yi was in a hurry, so he suggested. No need. Lin Yi knew that Fatty Lai and his brother weren't on good terms, so he rejected the suggestion. You have Lu Tiany's number, right? Give it to me. I'll borrow some from him. Yes. Wait a moment. His number is 139 x times x times x. Fatty Lai gave a number to Lin Yi. Lin Yi remembered Lu Tiany's number and called him. Lu Tiany remembered Lin Yi's number, but Lin Yi didn't remember his number. Now that Lin Yi called, Lu Tiany was shocked. He didn't expect Lin Yi to call him. As the young master of House Lu, Lu Tiany naturally knew how important Lin Yi was to House Lu. It could be said that he had been thinking of ways to get close to Lin Yi, but he didn't have the chance. He had some conflict with Lin Yi before, and it could be said that their relationship wasn't that harmonious. After that, he offended Lin Yi because of his wife's nephew, Wu Chintian. This caused the relationship between House Lu and Lin Yi to sink to a freezing point. Fortunately, he was humble and low profile, and that was how things got better. Lu Tiany was filled with regret. If it weren't for his useless wife, he wouldn't have become enemies with Lin Yi. Seeing Lin Yi's pill of life extension and toxin cleansing become a hot item in the auction, and seeing his father turn from an old man on the verge of death into a healthy man, Lu Tiany felt the importance of building a good relationship with Lin Yi. That was why he envied Lai Changyi. This Fatty Lai was just a small businessman, and his business wasn't that big. But now, he had become Lin Yi's follower. He was so amazing, so amazing. Before, Lu Tiany was polite when he spoke to Fatty Lai, but he still took the lead. But now, the two of them had swapped positions, and Lu Tiany and Fatty Lai were talking very carefully. It couldn't be helped, his boss was amazing. Chapter 884. A changed mind. So, Lu Tiany knew that if he wanted to keep in touch with Lin Yi, he couldn't cut off contact with Fatty Lai, especially when Fatty Lai wasn't that powerful yet. In a few years, House Lai might even become the #1 noble house. However, Lu Tiany didn't expect Lin Yi to call him. Lu Chaney took a deep breath and picked up the phone carefully. Hello, I'm Lu Chaney. Mr. Lu? I'm Lin E. Can you lend me 100 million? Lenny didn't waste time and said directly, if you don't return it, I'll return you a pill or treat your family for free. Sure, it's just 100 million. Miracle Dr. Lin, if you want to use it, just take it. What do you mean by not returning it? Isn't it too vulgar to mention that? Lu Chaney was just worrying about how to get closer to Lin E, and now Lin E called him to borrow money. Lu Chaney was so happy that he could die. How could he not agree? As for whether Lin E would return the money or not, that was secondary. Building a good relationship with Lin E was the most important goal. Thank you in advance. I'll text you an account number, and you can transfer it to me, Lin E said. Okay, no problem. Lu Chaney agreed quickly. These days, there weren't many people who begged others to borrow money, but Lu Chaney was definitely one of them. He didn't even want Lin E to return the money. Lin E didn't say anything and hung up. Peng Zhan's eyes widened as he looked at Lin E in disbelief. When Lin E and Fatty Lai were on the phone, he heard it from the side. When he heard that Lin E wanted Lu Tiany's number, he thought he heard it wrong. Who was Lu Tiany? The young master of Yinjing's noble house. Lin E wanted to borrow money from him? Did he hear it wrong? However, after Lin E called Lu Tiany, Peng Zhan realized that what he heard was the truth. Lin E really did borrow 100 million from Lu Tiany, and it didn't take any effort or persuasion at all. The guy seemed to be very happy to lend the money to Lin E. Uncle Chu, I borrowed 100 million from Lu Tiany first. Don't use all of the company's liquid funds. It'll affect the company's operations, Lin E said with a smile as he looked at the shocked Peng Zhan. Yinjing's house lose Lu Tiany. Peng Zhan still couldn't believe it. That's him, Lin E nodded. Give me the account number. I'll have him transfer the money over. Peng Zhan took in a deep breath. He didn't think that Lin E would have been in Songshan for such a long time already. It was no wonder why he didn't put House Yu in his eyes back then, even daring to kill House Yu's men. As it turned out, Lin E borrowed 100 million from another noble house's young master in such a calm and unquestionable tone, and the guy was happy to lend it to him. With Lu Tiany's 100 million, Peng Zhan easily transferred the remaining 150 million to the kidnapper's account number. About 10 minutes later, the kidnapper called again. It was still the same number that was full of zeros. Peng Zhan picked up the phone. Hello. Mr. Chu, you have a good reputation. The ransom is in so quickly. Zhen Yingjun was a little excited. He didn't know that being a kidnapper had such a bright future. He got 250 million just like that. Even if his father worked hard as a pirate, he wouldn't be able to get that much money in a year. If he kidnapped more people in the future, wouldn't he have an endless amount of money? When can I see Yao Yao and Shu? Peng Zhan sighed in relief when he heard that the kidnapper didn't intend to go back on his words. Since Mr. Chu is so straightforward, how can I disappoint you? I'll tell you the address, and you can tell Lin E to pick them up, Zhen Yingjun said. But I hope Mr. Chu remembers my words. Don't call the police, or you'll have to bear the consequences. No problem. I just hope that my daughter and Shu are safe, Peng Zhan said solemnly. South Mirror Mountain. There are 2 cars at the foot of the mountain, a Mercedes-Benz 600 and a Toyota Previa. Just get someone to follow the road in front of the 2 cars. Zhen Yingjun said. Okay, I'll remember it. Peng Zhan knew about South Mirror Mountain, but he didn't expect the kidnapper to bring his daughter to such a desolate place. It wouldn't be easy to find them with just the police force. Zhen Yingjun didn't say anything else and hung up the phone. He was waiting for Lin E to come and give Lin E a fatal blow, making him stay in South Mirror Mountain forever. He got the money, but the hatred between Zhen Yingjun and Lin E hadn't been resolved yet. How much did this guy make him suffer? He must make him pay back 10 times, 100 times. South Mirror Mountain, Lin E, they specifically asked you to bring Yao Yao and Shu back. Peng Zhan hesitated and said to Lin E, I feel like they're plotting something. Otherwise, why didn't they just release Yao Yao and Shu directly? Why did they ask you to go? Maybe they want to deal with me. Lin E said indifferently. If I'm not wrong, I already know who did this. Who? Peng Zhan froze and asked. Zhen Yingjun. Lin E said, it can't be House Yu. For what I can see, it can only be House Zhan. House Shun, House Shun of Donghai, Jindajo. Since when did you guys offend someone like that? Peng Zhan paused. He didn't have any interactions with Jindajo, let alone any grudges. Lin Yi briefly told Peng Zhan about what happened in the billiard room that day, and how Zhan Ingjun lusted after Meng Yao and Yushu, as well as how Zhan Ingjun punished him after they left. Peng Zhan shook his head and smiled bitterly. He didn't blame Lin Yi because, strictly speaking, it was Yushu's fault and it had nothing to do with Lin Yi. Lin Yi, you're saying that other than money, they also want to deal with you? Peng Zhan thought for a while and said seriously. That should be the case. Although Shu asked me to do it, I'm the one who carried it out. Zhan Ingjun might hate me to the core. That master is probably waiting for me on the mountain. Lin Yi shrugged. It's far from the city. No one will notice if something happens there. It's a good place to kill. Chapter 885. Moving separately, this was obviously a trap. Since they saw through it, how could they go in? Uncle Chu, you're thinking the wrong way. I mean, there's no one there. It's perfect for me to kill them. Lin Yi smiled and said casually. Oh, you're confident? Peng Zhan paused after hearing Lin Yi's words. Yes. Lin Yi nodded and said confidently. In fact, he didn't. However, he couldn't ignore Meng Yao and Yushu. He only said that to reassure Peng Zhan. Lin Yi could only take it one step at a time. There was no one in Songshan who could help him, and the enemy had masters. Lin Yi could only face them alone. That's good. Peng Zhan didn't suspect anything. Seeing Lin Yi's confidence, he finally relaxed. I was worried that you wouldn't be able to handle it. I'm relieved now. Haha, time is of the essence. Uncle Chu, I'll leave first. Lin Yi didn't say much and walked towards the door. Woof woof. General Weiwu barked twice behind Lin Yi. Lin Yi's footsteps paused for a moment. He smiled and waved at General Weiwu. Come with me. Wasn't this a ready-made helper? Who would have thought that a dog was a golden class dog? It was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Even if Lin Yi brought a dog to Nanjingzi Mountain, he didn't go against Zhan Ingjuan's suggestion. Only Lin Yi could go alone, because the other person wasn't a human, but a dog. General Weiwu wagged its tail excitedly and followed Lin. Peng Zhan naturally didn't know that General Weiwu had turned into a golden class dog. He thought that Lin Yi brought General Weiwu with him to make it easier for him to find Meng Yao. Just like last time at Mount Shuangyin, Lin Yi brought General Weiwu with him to track Meng Yao's scent. Lin Yi got on Yushu's yellow beetle and set the GPS to Nanjingzi Mountain. The man and dog made their way there. On Ling Shan's side, with Lin Yi's rejection, she naturally couldn't do anything. The other party was obviously a master, and she didn't know if she'd be helping or causing trouble. Since Lin Yi said he didn't need her, she could only wait anxiously in the police station. Fortunately, Peng Zhan hadn't pressured the police through anyone, and there was no news of him at all after he returned. South Mirror Z Mountain. This was the first time Lin Yi came to this place. He didn't know there was such a mountain near Songshan. The foot of the mountain was very desolate. There were no houses and no buildings. There were only some fire prevention slogans and warning signs that it was dangerous to go up the mountain. Not far from the mountain road, 2 cars stopped. It was the 2 cars that Zhan Ingjun mentioned. Lin Yi got off the car and patted General Weiwu's head. We'll split up later and act according to the situation, understand? After General Weiwu leveled up, it understood human nature better. It nodded, but Lin Yi wasn't sure if it really understood. Before it leveled up, Lin Yi already felt that this dog wasn't simple. It wasn't a normal dog, and now he felt that this dog's IQ was even higher than before. The steep mountain road was nothing to Lin Yi, let alone General Weiwu. It didn't even walk on the mountain road. Instead, it jumped around the trees and rocks on the side of the road and disappeared quickly. Lin Yi arrived at the top of the mountain and saw a few people in the open space at the top of the mountain. One of them was Zhan Ingjun. Beside him was a middle-aged man in a white robe. He was tall and strong like a pillar. Behind Zhan Ingjun were 2 bodyguards in black. On the left and right of the bodyguards were Meng Yao and Yushu. Both of their hands and feet were tied up. However, Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that the two of them weren't hurt. Linny, you're finally here? Wahahaha. Jun Ingjun wasn't an idiot. He had men lying in ambush at the foot of the mountain to see if Lin Yi came alone. He was afraid that Lin Yi would bring a team of police with him. That would be troublesome. Although Zhang Ingjun was arrogant and had masters around him, he couldn't let his men have a gunfight with the police, could he? Wasn't that asking for death? If that happened, he would have to give up on killing Lin Yi and kill Meng Yao and Yushu to vent his anger. At the back of the mountain, Zhang Ingjun had already prepared a helicopter. Even if the police surrounded the mountain, he could still escape. The police wouldn't think that he had a helicopter as a backup. By the time the police called for backup, he would be long gone. Zhen Dazhou's men were in the pirate business. How could they not have a helicopter as an escape tool? Zhang Ingjun had all the necessary equipment, and that was the reason why he dared to wait for Linny here. However, when Zhang Ingjun received a call from his men at the foot of the mountain, he heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like he was too careful. Lin Yi came alone without any backup or police. As for the dog beside Lin Yi, Zhang Ingjun automatically filtered it out. It was just a dog. What was there to worry about? It's really you, Zhang Ingjun. Lin Yi shrugged. It seemed like he was right. Things weren't as simple as he thought. His coming here was probably part of Zhang Ingjun's plan. Therefore, Lin Yi entered a state of alertness. Oh, you're pretty smart. You guessed it was me? Zhang Ingjun paused for a moment before laughing out loud. Ha ha ha. Since you guessed it was me, how dare you come alone? Are you stupid? Are you stupid? You're really stupid. It was no wonder that Zhang Ingjun was so happy. From his point of view, Lin Yi was an idiot. Since he guessed that he kidnapped Meng Yao and Yushu, he still dared to come and pick up the hostages, especially alone. If he was an idiot, then he was too arrogant. Are you saying that I'm smart or stupid? Are you contradicting yourself? Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. Are you stupid, or am I stupid? Meng Yao and Yushu were both here. Lin Yi made up his mind and started to think of a plan. Ever since he came to the top of the mountain, the Jade had been warning him nonstop. This meant that the mountain was full of danger, and Lin Yi didn't know where the danger was. Chapter 886. A sudden turn of events. Don't be so quick with your words. Zhang Ingjun sneered. Lin Yi, I will return the humiliation you made me suffer 10 times, 100 times more. As he finished speaking, Zhang Ingjun made a hand gesture, and the warning signal on Lin Yi's chest suddenly became urgent. This position was dangerous, and Lin Yi dodged instinctively. A bullet brushed past him. It was a gun with a silencer. The bullet surprised Lin Yi. He didn't think that Zhang Ingjun would use a gun against him. Lin Yi guessed that Zhang Ingjun wanted to rely on a master to kill him. However, a few bullets couldn't hurt Lin Yi at all. Since Lin Yi was on guard, he wouldn't let the bullets hit him. One bullet missed, and following that, a series of bang 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 sounded. It was like a bamboo tube popping beans. Countless bullets flew towards Lin Yi's direction. So many people? Lin Yi didn't think that Zhang Ingjun would have so many people waiting for him with guns. He was definitely a strong opponent. Although Zhang Ingjun looked arrogant, he was different from Zhong Pingliang and Zhao Qibing. He knew how to use a sea of guns. If Lin Yi didn't break through to Mystic Class and was still in the late phase of Golden Class, he wouldn't be able to dodge so many bullets. However, Lin Yi had already advanced to Mystic Class and relied on his agile skills and unique footwork from when he was an assassin. He barely dodged the first round of bullets. Continue shooting. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Shoot him to death. Zhang Ingjun saw that Lin Yi narrowly dodged a round of bullets, and he was instantly enraged. You bunch of idiots, you can't even kill one person with so many guns? Zhang Ingjun was quite a distance away from Lin Yi, and he wasn't worried that Lin Yi would rush over. So he spoke without restraint. After all, even if Lin Yi rushed over, he still had Ma Zhu with him. Bang, bang, bang. The dull gunshots sounded again, but this time there was an accident, ouch. Accompanied by the muffled sound of the bullets, a scream was suddenly heard. A gunman who had been lying in ambush instantly flew out from behind the rock he was hiding in and fell to the ground. His body twitched twice, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Then, he could no longer move. The sudden turn of events left everyone dumbfounded for a moment. Jining Jun was dumbfounded. Ma Zhu was dumbfounded, and the two bodyguards were dumbfounded. The snipers lying in ambush were also dumbfounded. They didn't expect their partner, who was lying in ambush, to suddenly fly into the air. With a swoosh, he flew out from behind the rock, as if there was a spring under his butt, and fell to the ground. No one knew if he was dead or alive. However, just as they were wondering what was going on, an accident happened again. Ouch! Another scream. Another gunman who was lying in ambush completed his dream of pretending to be a Superman. With a swoosh, he flew out and fell to the ground. This time, he didn't even twitch and fainted. No one knew if he was dead or alive. What's going on? What's going on? Linny, did you bring someone? Zhening Juan's face instantly showed vigilance. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that an accident happened, and this accident must have something to do with Lin Yi. I didn't. Lin Yi shook his head. I really didn't bring anyone. You told me to come alone, so I came alone. This. Zhening Jun heard Lin Yi's confidence and was taken aback. It wasn't that he didn't believe Lin Yi. After all, it didn't matter if Lin Yi admitted that he brought someone else or not. Both parties had already started fighting, and Lin Yi had no reason to lie to him. However, Lin Yi said that he didn't bring anyone. This made Zhening Jun confused. Just as Zhening Jun was puzzled, another gun squad member who was lying in ambush turned into a flying man and flew out with a whoosh, falling to the ground like a corpse. The enemy has helpers. They don't seem to be human. Ma Zhu frowned as he said word by word. He was a master of physical attacks and defense, but his eyesight wasn't good. He only made his judgment based on the current signs. Young Master Jun, why don't we retreat a little? It's a little dangerous here. A bodyguard beside Zhening Jun suggested carefully. Okay. Zhening Jun was a little scared and didn't dare to show off anymore. He retreated behind Meng Yao and Yushu, using them as a shield. Meng Yao and Yushu were actually very excited when they saw Lin Yi come and save them. Although Meng Yao felt that it was dangerous for Lin Yi to come here, she suddenly felt relieved when she saw Lin Yi. That feeling was as if she found someone she could rely on. She was no longer afraid and nervous. It was a good and warm feeling. However, Meng Yao and Yushu didn't know that Zhening Jun had a gunman lying in ambush nearby. They were brought out from the cave before Lin Yi came. So, when they heard the gunshots, they were shocked. They even forgot to scream and forgot that they were in danger. They looked at Lin Yi nervously. They wanted Lin Yi to be careful, but they were afraid that Lin Yi would be distracted, so they chose to stay silent. When they saw that Lin Yi successfully dodged the bullets, Meng Yao and Yushu heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that Lin Yi was quite powerful. Zhening Jun thought that he could kill Lin Yi with a gun. It was impossible. Then, Meng Yao and Yushu saw Zhening Jun's men flying out from their hiding places one by one and falling to the ground. They were as surprised as Zhening Jun, but a strange light flashed across Meng Yao's eyes. Shu, it looks like General Wei Wu. Meng Yao whispered to Yushu with uncertainty. Oh, Yushu heard Meng Yao's words and rubbed her eyes in disbelief. What the hell? You're influenced by the company you keep. General Wei Wu has been with Shield Bro for a long time and has become so fierce. He's almost like a shield dog. Chapter 887. The General is Powerful Whoosh. Another member of the firearm team flew out and fell to the ground dead. The situation was too horrifying. There was no warning at all. One by one, the members of the firearm team died, and it finally ignited their fear. They were a group of pirates who lived on the edge of a knife, and they were in the business of putting their lives on the line. They weren't afraid of death, but they were afraid of dying for no reason. What was going on? Lin Yi was still standing there without moving, and a few of his men had died. Therefore, the firearm team went crazy and started shooting at Lin Yi. They thought that it was Lin Yi's doing, and as long as they killed Lin Yi, everything would be solved. Bang, bang, bang. Gunshots sounded everywhere, but there were still people who flew out from their hiding spots and died. Wah! Shoot him! Beat him to death! Jun Ingjun roared in anger. What the hell is this? Linny, what the hell did you do? Lin Yi's lips curved into a cold smile. Firearm team? Just wait for your death. Since you're lying in ambush here, you should be prepared to die. However, although Lin Yi was disdainful of the firearm team, he didn't let his guard down. These people had gone crazy and started shooting randomly. Some of them were afraid that the curse of death would find them, so they started shooting everywhere. As he dodged the bullets, he moved closer to Meng Yao and Yushu as fast as he could. He was afraid that these people would hurt the two girls in their frenzy. I'll kill you. Zhang Wushan was a small leader in the firearm team, but he was on the verge of a mental breakdown. He didn't know what to do as he watched his comrades die one by one, especially when his brother, Zhang Wuyu, fell to the ground and died. Zhang Wushan was completely insane. He didn't care about hiding anymore and jumped out from his hiding spot. He held his gun and started shooting randomly. He lost his mind and couldn't differentiate between friend and foe. He even shot at Zhun Ingjun's direction. Zhun Ingjun was shocked and quickly hid behind Meng Yao and Yushu. As Zhang Wushan's gun sounded, Lin Yi frowned. He didn't care about anything else and ran towards Meng Yao and Yushu. This was because Zhang Wushan's shot was aimed at Meng Yao's direction. With his current shooting angle, he would definitely hit the miss if there were no accidents. Lin Yi didn't have time to warn Meng Yao as her hands and feet were tied up. It was impossible for her to run away. Lin Yi gritted his teeth and jumped in front of Meng Yao. At the same time, a bullet pierced into Lin Yi's thigh. Damn! Lin Yi sweated. Why was it still this part? Last time in the bank, he was shot in the thigh and Lin Yi was very embarrassed when he went to the hospital to get the bullet removed. He didn't expect it to be in the same position again. Ah! Meng Yao screamed. She also realized that Lin Yi was shot. He took a bullet for her. Last time in the bank, it was the same Lin Yi who was shot next to the miss, but Meng Yao didn't feel anything special at that time. But now, why did her heart hurt so much? Meng Yao felt as if the bullet had hit her heart, and it was a heart-wrenching feeling. Lin Yi, how are you? Meng Yao wanted to touch Lin Yi's injury, but her hands and feet were tied, and she couldn't move. It's so touching. Yao Yao sis, Shield Bro took a bullet for you. You have to repay him with your body when you go back. Yushu sighed. Repay him with my body? Don't talk nonsense at a time like this. Didn't you see that Lin Yi was shot? Meng Yao didn't know whether to laugh or cry after hearing Yushu's words. She didn't know if it was because she was avoiding the question or because she was worried about Lin Yi's injury. Either way, she didn't want to talk about repaying him with her body, but Meng Yao was thinking, would she do it if Lin Yi really asked her to repay him with her body? Would she? It seemed like she would. How is that possible? Oh, Shield Bro is a doctor. It's not a big deal. Yushu was calm in the face of danger. She saw that Lin Yi was still standing, and there was nothing wrong with Lin Yi. He didn't even have a muscle after being shot. She knew that Lin Yi would be fine. Lin Yi was indeed fine. It was just a bullet. Yushu was right. Lin Yi was a doctor, after all. He'd chosen the spot the moment he'd blocked the bullet, avoiding bones and arteries, so the bullet was stuck in the muscle. It didn't matter if he didn't take it out for now. Otherwise, Lin Yi wouldn't have followed the robbers to the car and snatched their gun when he was shot. However, Lin Yi didn't have the time to think about his injury. He shook his right hand, and a silver needle appeared between his fingers. Zhang Wushan was crazy, and Lin Yi had to get rid of him as soon as possible. Lin Yi didn't expect Zhun Ingjun's men to be so mentally weak. They were already scared out of their wits. Actually, it wasn't that the firearms team's mental fortitude was bad. They had been killing people at sea all day, and their guts had long been trained to be bigger than a basketball. It was just that today's situation was too strange. They weren't afraid of being hacked to death with a knife, and they weren't afraid of being shot in the head, but this kind of flying man style of death was the first time they had seen it. It was too scary. Lin Yi wanted to kill Zhang Wushan, but before he could shoot out the silver needle, General Wei Wu jumped out and agilely jumped behind Zhang Wushan. Its forelegs stamped on Zhang Wushan's back, and Zhang Wushan was sent flying like his comrade. He fell to the ground and died on the spot. Yao Yao sis, General Wei Wu is so awesome. Yushu knew that General Wei Wu was the one who killed the firearms team, but she was still shocked when she saw it with her own eyes. Meng Yao widened her eyes and looked at the General Wei Wu she raised for 10 years. How could it be like this? Why didn't she realize that General Wei Wu had such a powerful side? It seemed like it was different after Lin Yi healed it last time. Zhen Yingjun finally understood how his men died. They were kicked to death by a dog. Wasn't this world too crazy? Chapter 888. Your opponent is Mima Zhu had been a famous master for a long time, but he had never heard of a dog that could cultivate, let alone reach the golden class. Was this still a dog? The rest of the members finally knew what attacked them. They all turned their guns from Lin Yi to General Wei Wu, but General Wei Wu's target was smaller than Lin Yi. It jumped left and right to the back of another member. In the end, before the flintlock member could react, he was tragically shot dead by his comrades' random shots. Before he died, he didn't understand why he wasn't kicked to death by a dog, but was killed by his comrade. Did they treat him as a dog? General Wei Wu did the same thing, jumping left and right nimbly. Thus, a few more members of the firearms squad died under the muzzle of their comrades, and the few that survived were kicked to death by General Wei Wu. Master Ma, kill that dog. Kill it now. Zhen Yingjun screamed in horror. He didn't expect a dog to be so powerful that it could kill people with a kick. Ma Zhu nodded and took a step forward, ready to kill General Wei Wu. However, Lin Yi blocked in front of Ma Zhu. Your opponent is me. Lin Yi looked at Ma Zhu and said calmly. He couldn't see through Ma Zhu's strength. A physical master's strength wasn't determined by the amount of energy they had. They increased their level through training their body. So Lin Yi couldn't know how strong his body was. Move! You're not my opponent. Ma Zhu glanced at Lin Yi and said in disdain. Why don't we try and find out? Lin Yi smiled. Perhaps you were right. I'm not your opponent, but when I fight a monster above my level, I can occasionally get a critical hit. What critical hit? Ma Zhu obviously didn't understand Lin Yi's words. Since you want to die first, then I will fulfill your wish. Ma Zhu was annoyed. He knew that the members of the firearms team were equally important to his boss. Although they worked for Hao Shun, most of the money they earned flowed into his boss's pocket every year. Therefore, Ma Zhu wanted to kill General Wei Wu first to stop it from killing people. But Lin Yi didn't give him chance. Anger surged in Ma Zhu's heart. But he also knew that it was impossible to save the members of the firearms team. Ma Zhu stared at Lin Yi, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Since he couldn't save the firearms team, then he would vent his anger on Lin Yi's life. In an instant, Ma Zhu's aura was raised to the extreme, but a physical master's aura was much weaker than a spiritual master's. The energy on Lin Yi's body was released at this moment as well. The aura of a mystic early-phase peak was even stronger than Ma Zhu, who was a mystic mid-phase peak physical master. Peak of the middle phase of the mystic division. Lin Yi knew that he couldn't pretend to be weak today. His opponent's strength was one level higher than his. How could he pretend to be weak? Although spiritual masters were always stronger than physical masters of the same level, that was only limited to the same level. Even if a spiritual master of the peak of the early phase of the mystic division fought against a physical master of the middle phase of the mystic division, it would still be very difficult. But if a spiritual master of the peak of the early phase of the mystic division fought against a physical master of the middle phase of the mystic division, then the chance of winning would be even lower. This was the situation that Lin Yi was in right now. Lin Yi had never met a master who was so much stronger than him. His face was very serious as he stared at Ma Zhu. He was already in battle mode. Peak of the early phase of the mystic division. Ma Zhu saw Lin Yi's strength and was surprised. Although you're stronger than Li Fu, that old thing, it's useless. Today you're dead. As he spoke, Ma Zhu moved. Both his feet stomped on the ground, and both his palms pressed towards Lin Yi's chest. He trained his defense first, and then his attack, so he basically didn't have any moves to speak of. It was a completely head-on stance, and all the weak points on his body were exposed, but he didn't care at all. Lin Yi's face darkened. He didn't dare to take a palm from a physical master of the peak of the middle phase of the Mystic Division. Ma Zhu's stance also made Lin Yi confused. What kind of fighting style was this? It was a stance that didn't care about his life. He only cared about attacking and didn't even know how to protect his acupuncture points. Wasn't he afraid that he would ambush him? But before Lin Yi figured out Ma Zhu's fighting style, he didn't dare to make any moves. As Ma Zhu's palms approached, Lin Yi quickly retreated and barely dodged Ma Zhu's attack. Coward! Ma Zhu saw that Lin Yi actually dodged and ran, and he couldn't help but sneer. His tall figure suddenly turned into a black shadow again and rushed towards Lin Yi. As expected of a physical master of the peak of the middle phase of the Mystic Division. Before Ma Zhu's figure even arrived, the strong wind that he brought up already made Lin Yi's face hurt. Lin Yi frowned. Just dodging wasn't a solution, but Lin Yi didn't dare to fight Ma Zhu head-on. Ma Zhu's strength had already been proven by Faubert. Lin Yi's brain was working quickly to think of a countermeasure. Go to hell. Ma Zhu saw that Lin Yi kept retreating, and he felt great. He roared, turned his palms into fists, and punched towards Lin Yi again. He couldn't dodge anymore. Lin Yi knew that dodging wouldn't solve the problem. Therefore, this time Lin Yi didn't dodge. Instead, he stood where he was, as if waiting for Ma Zhu to take his punch. Ma Zhu sneered, as if he could already see Lin Yi being beaten into a pile of mush by him. I'm not afraid of you not attacking. I'm afraid that you'll keep dodging. Ma Zhu knew his own strength. He wasn't afraid that Lin Yi would ambush him, but he was afraid that Lin Yi would play hide and seek with him. He was already a practitioner of the 8th level of the Golden Shield, and his bones were as hard as steel. Normal methods couldn't do anything to him, unless he could find his weak spot and break it. However, how could a normal person find his weak spot? Even his boss didn't know about Ma Zhu's weak spot, let alone Lin Yi. Ma Zhu didn't dare to be careless against a master of a higher level, but against an opponent like Lin Yi who was 1 level lower than him, Ma Zhu wasn't afraid at all. It didn't matter if it was an internal style or an external style. As long as the opponent wasn't strong to a certain extent, it wouldn't be able to cause any damage to Ma Zhu's body. Of course, Lin Yi didn't know that Ma Zhu was a practitioner of the Golden Shield. If he knew, he wouldn't have taken a risk. Chapter 889. Between a rock and a hard place, Ma Zhu was strong, but he wasn't fast enough. This was the conclusion that Lin Yi came to after observing Ma Zhu's 2 attacks. Qinggong was one of Lin Yi's strengths, so Lin Yi decided to use a sneak attack to get rid of Ma Zhu. Fight head-on. That was just to trick Ma Zhu. If he really fought head-on with Ma Zhu, then Lin Yi would be looking for death. Ha. Ma Zhu was proud of himself and thought that his fist was about to land on Lin Yi, but he suddenly realized that Lin Yi had disappeared. Ma Zhu was stunned. Huh? Where is he? Here. Lin Yi's words were followed by a loud bang. Lin Yi's fists landed on Ma Zhu's back. Lin Yi used all his strength in these 2 punches. He didn't hold back his strength at all. His goal was to heavily injure Ma Zhu. If Ma Zhu was an Earth-class master, then Lin Yi's attack would at most cause a light injury. But the 2 of them were only 1 level apart. Although Lin Yi couldn't kill Ma Zhu with all his strength, he would probably injure him badly. This was Lin Yi's strategy. He would ambush Ma Zhu a few more times, and he wouldn't believe that he couldn't kill him. Although Ma Zhu was strong, wouldn't it be fine as long as he didn't fight head-on with him? Master once said that if the enemy was stronger than you, then you should avoid them and ambush them when they least expect it. The rules of the martial world were all nonsense to an assassin. The ultimate goal of an assassin was to kill the enemy, not to talk about the rules of the martial world. Lin Yi's fists landed heavily on Ma Zhu's back, but Lin Yi's face turned extremely ugly at this moment, because Lin Yi felt that his fists seemed to have hit an iron plate, as if he wasn't hitting a human body. Moreover, the recoil from the iron plate was enough to make Lin Yi choke. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Lin Yi's mouth. Obviously, a portion of the force from the previous attack had rebounded back to his body. However, even though he was surprised, Lin Yi's feet didn't stop. After the attack, Lin Yi quickly retreated. As expected, just as Lin Yi dodged, Ma Zhu swung his fist and turned around, but he missed. "Kid, you're pretty fast, haha." Ma Zhu laughed. "How is it? You must be feeling great right now, right? TSK, TSK, you even vomited blood. Looks like your punch was quite powerful. But you didn't expect that you would suffer the consequences of your own actions, right? Ha 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 ha." Lin Yi looked at Ma Zhu in shock and frowned in disbelief. At this moment, Ma Zhu didn't look like he was injured at all. Looking at him, it was as if the two punches weren't aimed at him. "You're not injured?" Lin Yi took a deep breath and stabilized his body. He smiled bitterly in his heart. He went for wool and came home shorn. Most of the force that hit Ma Zhu returned to his own body. "There's no harm in telling you. My golden bell shield is already at level 8. Ma Zhu looked at Lin Yi mockingly. "I'm not afraid of you hitting me. If I hit you, you'll definitely die. How is it? Fun, right? Wahahaha. What can you do? Golden bell, shield, level 8. No wonder." Lin Yi came to a realization. No wonder Ma Zhu was fine after he hit him, and he was the one who got hurt. He was a practitioner of Golden Bell Shield. There weren't many practitioners like him because it was a tough process before mastering Golden Bell Shield. The practitioner's mind and bones had to be exhausted, and he had to suffer a lot of pain. If he didn't have a strong mind, he wouldn't be able to master Golden Bell Shield. Jining Jun saw Lin Yi retreating and vomiting blood. He immediately cheered happily. "Master Ma is awesome. Master Ma is awesome. Kill this kid." Meng Yao and Yu Shu, on the other hand, held their breaths. In their hearts, Lin Yi was invincible, but Lin Yi actually vomited blood. And it was when Lin Yi was attacking someone. He wasn't even attacked. That's a little strange. However, although Meng Yao and Yu Shu found it strange, they knew that Ma Zhu was definitely stronger than Lin Yi, because Ma Zhu didn't seem to be injured at all. "Lin Yi." Meng Yao saw that Lin Yi was injured, and she couldn't bear to see him injured. There was a gunshot wound on his leg. Meng Yao knew that if Lin Yi didn't come to save her, he wouldn't be injured and wouldn't need to fight with Ma Zhu. Why did he protect her so much? Was it because of the 30,000 yuan salary? He didn't have to do this. Huh. Lin Yi smiled at the miss and wiped the blood on the corner of his mouth. "Wait for me to kill him. Then I'll bring you home." In an instant, Meng Yao's eyes were wet and tears flowed out uncontrollably. He was always so nice to her, and Meng Yao nodded hard. "Let's go home together." "Kill me? That's ridiculous." Ma Zhu snorted at Lin Yi's words. "I'll stand here and let you hit me. Can you kill me?" Lin Yi looked at Ma Zhu alertly and thought of a countermeasure in his mind. It could be said that Ma Zhu was the strongest opponent Lin Yi met after he came to Songsan. Not only was he one level higher than him, he also practiced the Golden Shield. In other words, all attacks were useless against him. Unless Lin Yi was stronger than Ma Zhu, he wouldn't be his opponent at all. What should he do? Lin Yi fell into a dilemma. In the past, Lin Yi followed the principle of running away if he couldn't win. He didn't have any psychological burden because his master once said, "Where there's life, there's hope." However, Lin Yi couldn't leave today. If he left, what about the Miss and Shu? Could Lin Yi leave them alone? Lin Yi couldn't. Lin Yi believed that if he left, with Ma Zhu's arrogant personality, he wouldn't let Meng Yao and Yu Shu go. And he didn't know what Jining Jun would do. Lin Yi silently chanted the art of dragon mastery in his mind to heal his internal injuries. However, because he didn't enter the Jade space, the effect was minimal. "What? You don't want to fight? If you don't want to, I'll fight you." Ma Zhu laughed and attacked Lin Yi again. Before Ma Zhu could get close to him, Lin Yi moved away agilely again. However, his eyes were filled with anxiety. He couldn't go on like this. He couldn't keep fighting Ma Zhu like this, could he? Chapter 890. He was poisoned. It was impossible for Ma Zhu to kill him, but it was even more impossible for him to defeat Ma Zhu. Lin Yi didn't even dare to attack Ma Zhu now. It would be a waste of effort if he attacked him, and it would reflect back to him. Ma Zhu saw that Lin Yi was dodging here and there, but he wasn't angry at all. He only laughed coldly, jumping up and down. What's the difference between you and that dog? If you have the guts, then keep jumping. On the other side, General Wei Wu had successfully killed all the members of the firearm team. He wagged his tail and ran over, wanting to help Lin Yi. Go protect Yao Yao and Shu. You can't handle this place, Lin Yi ordered General Wei Wu. In this place, even Lin Yi couldn't do anything to Ma Zhu, let alone General Wei Wu. General Wei Wu heard Lin Yi's words and quickly came to Meng Yao and Yu Shu's side. He used his teeth to bite off the ropes on them. Lin Yi looked at Meng Yao and Yu Shu. He was relieved after seeing that the ropes on them were untied. While he was dodging Ma Zhu, he shouted to Meng Yao, Yao Yao, leave with Shu and General Wei Wu first. But, Lin Yi, Meng Yao was worried about Lin Yi. How could she leave him alone and leave by herself? You leave first. If you leave, I can run away anytime. Lin Yi was panicking. After fighting with Ma Zhu for so long, he still couldn't do anything. Hee, they dare. Ma Zhu said confidently, if they dare to leave, I'll kill them first. You can dodge my attacks, but what about them? Ha ha. Lin Yi frowned after hearing Ma Zhu's words. He could only give up on the idea of letting Meng Yao leave first. It seemed like Ma Zhu wasn't an idiot. He knew that after Meng Yao and Yu Shu left, there was no need for him to fight anymore. He would only stay here if Meng Yao and Yu Shu were here. However, there was nothing Lin Yi could do. Ma Zhu was right. He could totally leave and kill Meng Yao and Yu Shu right now because he wasn't afraid of his ambush. Lin Yi couldn't do anything to him at all. We'll wait for you. We'll go home together. Meng Yao heard Ma Zhu's words and let out a sigh of relief. She didn't want to leave first. Now that she couldn't leave, she felt relieved. Come on, shield bro. Beat the crap out of this idiot. Yu Shu joined in. Oomph. Ma Zhu snorted coldly, but he didn't want to argue with the two little girls. What he wanted to do now was to kill Lin Yi. Brat, let's see if you will die this time. Fu dash Lin Yi dodged Ma Zhu's attack again, but it was extremely dangerous. He was almost hit by Ma Zhu's attack. What was going on? Why did his reaction become so slow? Could it be that his stamina was depleted? That was impossible. How is this even possible? He wouldn't be depleted even after running for tens of thousands of meters. He only dodged a few attacks from Ma Zhu. How could he be depleted? Lin Yi's left shoulder was scratched by Ma Zhu's palm, and a piercing pain immediately spread throughout Lin Yi's entire shoulder. Instantly, Lin Yi saw his shoulder swollen. If he wasn't wrong, his bones had been fractured by Ma Zhu. Lin Yi looked at Ma Zhu in shock. What was going on? Why did his movement become so slow? He was actually hit by Ma Zhu. What was going on? How is it? It feels good, right? It's just that I didn't hit your vital parts. But it's okay, I have patience. You will slowly die from my torture. Ma Zhu looked at Lin Yi's swollen shoulder and revealed a sinister smile. Feels good, doesn't it? Lin Yi frowned. He felt that his steps were getting heavier and heavier. Lin Yi was always confident in his qin gong and stamina. But now, not only did his qin gong deteriorate, even his stamina was showing signs of exhaustion. Lin Yi knew something was wrong. If he continued like this, he would definitely die. He quickly started channeling the art of dragon mastery, checking his injuries. Wait! Suddenly, Lin Yi found something wrong with his body. Poison. He was poisoned. Lin Yi's face suddenly turned very bad. He thought of a possibility. The bullets were poisoned. Poison? Ma Zhu was slightly stunned. Obviously, he didn't know. Ha 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 ha. Zhening Jun suddenly laughed after hearing Lin Yi's words. He laughed happily. I thought you weren't afraid of poison. It didn't happen for so long, and I thought this poison was useless to cultivators like you. So it's just a delay. I was wondering why you became so stupid. It's because the poison is acting up. Wah ha ha ha. It's really poisonous. Lin Yi gritted his teeth and breathed heavily. He didn't expect Zhang Jun to be so cunning and smeared poison on the bullets. Master Ma, the poison is acting up. Kill him now. Zhang Jun didn't think there was anything wrong with what he did. From his point of view, Killing Lin Yi was the most important goal. Moreover, he felt that he was extremely wise at this moment. If Lin Yi wasn't poisoned, Ma Zhu wouldn't be able to do anything to him if he jumped up and down. Although Ma Zhu was strong, Lin Yi's Qigong was good, and he couldn't do anything to Lin Yi at the moment. But now that Lin Yi was poisoned, his movements had slowed down. Lin Yi's death, from his point of view, was only a matter of time before he died. Ma Zhu nodded. Although he despised the poisoning, it was annoying that the kid jumped around in front of him and dodged every attack. Therefore, it was a good thing that Lin Yi was poisoned. Was he going to die here today? Lin Yi gritted his teeth as he looked at the miss, then at Yushu. If he ran now, Lin Yi believed that Ma Zhu wouldn't be able to catch up with him. But what about Miss? But if he didn't leave, would Ma Zhu let Miss go after he killed him? He probably would, right? Otherwise, if Zhang Yingjun wanted to kill Meng Yao and Yushu, they would already be dead bodies before he arrived. But Zhang Yingjun didn't do that, which meant that he only wanted to kill him and not Meng Yao and Yushu. If he died, it would cause far less trouble than Meng Yao and Yushu. From Zhang Yingjun's point of view, he was only Meng Yao and Yushu's follower. It didn't matter if a follower died, but if Peng Zhan's daughter died, it would be a big deal. With that thought, Lin Yi calmed down. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.